What would happen if the person you trust the most became your greatest enemy? On the 8th floor of the Tower of the Plains of Extinction, a young warrior, Kazuki Kiyoshi, cried out for courage among his soldiers, attempting to unite them all in a single common goal, to defeat the horrendous Hydra. And the mysterious Subaru Narukami was approaching rapidly, bringing not only hope, but also a gift that would challenge everyone. As the order of warriors gathered, an unsettling energy began to pulse, heralding the chaos that was to come. The battlefield was set, but the true test of loyalty and courage was about to be revealed. The tension in the air was almost palpable. Who can truly be trusted when the Hydra rises? The answer could be devastating. That's right, I'm Shin, and you're on the best recap channel of MANHWA. I hope you enjoy the video and start by hitting the like button and sharing this video. The story transports us to the 8th floor of the tower in the Plains of Extinction. There, a group of warriors gathered, while a massive army marched through the snow, preparing for what lay ahead. In front of all this, a young blonde man who was clearly the leader of the expedition turned to the soldiers and began to speak, seeking inspiration and courage from them for the fight that was about to take place. This guy was Kazuki Kiyoshi, master of the Blue Zone Guild, and he reminded everyone gathered that they had come together to defeat the Guardian of the Eye. 8th floor. He made it clear that relaxing was not an option. If they failed this mission, the 9th floor would become an unreachable dream. Just then, someone well-known finally arrived in the midst of the crowd. Kazuki, with a look of surprise, recognized it was the Blue Eyes Guild, led by his enigmatic masked master who appeared all imposing. It was Subaru Narukami, the master of the #1 guild, and our protagonist Kazuki was beaming with the arrival of Subaru and went over to greet him with a big smile on his face. The hero apologized for being late, but Kazuki made a joke saying he was the first to arrive. A soldier even commented that Samarin and the other member would also show up, but he was probably just waiting to pick up the scraps from the fight. Samarin's words made Subaru put his hand on his weapon, ready for any trouble that might arise. But it was in this tense atmosphere that our hero delivered a gift to Kazuki, leaving the blonde quite confused. It was a shining ring, the blessing of the Archangel that aided in fatigue recovery. Kazuki was shocked by what he received, while Subaru advised him to prepare, as he wanted to ensure that the mission succeeded. The protagonist then suggested that, after the battle, Kazuki should return to the Blue Earth and return the ring when they got back home. The blonde was moved and gave a grateful smile. Subaru even added that if Kazuki preferred, he could keep the ring without needing to return it. Suddenly, the ground began to shake, putting both of them on alert for what was coming. Kazuki alerted that the monster was approaching, and he didn't expect this to happen so soon. The Guardian of the 8th floor finally appeared, a grotesque creature that sent all the warriors to the ground. Kazuki shouted for his soldiers to prepare for the fight that was about to begin. The creature was a sea hydra, with multiple heads and teeth as sharp as knives. Its noise confronted the horrible beast and made criticisms about its repugnant appearance. A dark energy began to pulse in the masked man's hands as he felt a shiver. Lightning began to course through his body, and Subaru started to say that this would be the day the creature would meet its end. The Hydra, with a fierce gaze, fixed its eyes on the warriors, ready to commence the massacre at the sight. Then, it opened its mouth, preparing its breath attack to decimate that army. Kazuki shouted desperately for everyone to protect themselves, but Subaru interrupted that there was no need for that. He fearlessly advanced towards the Hydra's attack, as if he were going to the market. My brother, with an extremely agile and precise movement, was determined to slice the Hydra's attack in half. Then, he quickly unsheathed his sword, and with a single blow that seemed like everything would be resolved. The wave of dark energy manifested at the same moment, cutting through the creature's attack with extreme ease. Splitting the Hydra, the strike diverted, passing right by the eyes of the army, and Kazuki watched, impressed, while exclaiming that his friend always surprised him. Everyone in the guild began to celebrate, right? A member with red hair was complaining that he wanted to be the first to attack. A teammate also asked if Subaru had delivered to Kazuki, but the masked one kept it a mystery and revealed nothing. Then, with an extremely determined look, he asked his team if they were ready to fight. He immediately declared that they would put an end to that absurd Hydra and leave that infernal floor behind once and for all. The guild members, blue-eyed, faced the Hydra, preparing for a final battle. Meanwhile, Kazuki, from afar, admired how united and strong the team was. In the distance, the Murim Alliance was preparing, and one of the leaders said they had already organized the soldiers according to the plan. Upon hearing this, one asked himself if he should also initiate the attack against the Hydra. Then, that hooded man agreed, and the other wished him success in the battle that was about to occur. A guy named Tochia shook his head, watching everything with an extremely tense expression. While the Blue Eyes Guild was already focused and ready to attack the powerful Hydra, they all moved forward together and began to strike the creature with everything they had. But the enraged Hydra roared, glaring at all the warriors at once, prepared to retaliate all those blows. Then, a fierce girl girl jumped to attack, and her partner criticized her for going without warning anyone. With a fearless look, a masked girl brandished her dagger, ready to plunge it into the thick skin of the Hydra, shouting that this fight would be a breeze for them. Another member, tired and irritated, used ice magic, complaining about the ridiculous situation. With a sly smile, Tokia threw down a challenge. Then he told a colleague to test it out and see who would deal the most damage. The Hydra, wielding its dagger, was surrounded by a sinister red aura. As he attacked the Hydra, his friend also accepted the challenge and prepared to strike. Jokingly, he said that the loser would pay for dinner. He launched a blow with blue energy blades. Thus, the hooded blonde attacked the Hydra with everything he had, brutally slicing the creature. The impact was so strong that the Hydra sent a companion flying. Another guy apologized to the healer, well, Tino. She, with all her calmness and confidence as always, told them to keep attacking while preparing the magic. Tino created a pink shield to protect the team, and she stated that she would handle the defense without any fear. One of her teammates, worried, shouted her name and alerted her about the extremely tense battle ahead. But suddenly, Kazuki appeared behind her with an incredibly wicked smile, throwing the question into the air. "Can you block this, my healer?" Speechless, she froze upon realizing the trouble that was coming. That was when a traitor attacked the poor girl from behind, bluntly stating that their problem was being too cocky. Seeing the betrayal, our hero became furious and prepared to attack the blonde without thinking twice. The poor girl fell to the ground, gravely injured, not understanding anything about the treacherous attack. The traitor stood there looking at the fallen girl with a satisfied smirk. This made him angry, and instantly, Narukame's sound shone with an intense blue light, reflecting all the fury within him. Kazuki, all dirtied from the fight, shouted that it was not the time to look away from the main battle. The guy couldn't believe what he was seeing and questioned this senseless betrayal. Then, a mysterious message appeared out of nowhere, warning that they had been chosen by the tower for a special mission. It was the first notice everyone received all at once, and nobody knew if it was a test or something else, because the truth was a mystery. In the end, everyone decided to follow the irresistible order and try to reach the top that no one had succeeded in. Several warriors from different worlds, from Earth to Murim, formed an army, each with their own goal. Years later, the bloody result of that battle against the Hydra on the 8th floor, it was clear on the ground that the bodies of our hero's friends were everywhere, and these bodies belonged to those who did not survive the fight. Tears rolled down Subaru's face as he mourned the loss of each one of them. Injured, our protagonist thought he had warned everyone to flee, but no one listened. He looked at the dead friends and complained that he didn't remember giving them permission to die. Then, with deep sadness, he called his companions idiots for having given their lives in such a mediocre way. A screen appeared showing that he was poisoned and extremely fatigued. The system started to warn him that he would die if his fatigue reached 100. With hatred, the protagonist turned to the culprit and questioned why he was being treated this way. The traitor simply replied that this was the only way to defeat him, as his friends would interfere. As the bodies of the members of the Blue-Eyed Guild lay in the snow, Kazuki shouted that all the hero had given lately was his life, and that's why he chose the world. Subaru was silent, processing the betrayal of someone he had considered a friend. Kazuki said it was a pity, but the end was near. With a sarcastic smile, he displayed the ring and said there was no need to return it since everyone would die. Kazuki threw the item far away, telling the masked one not to be sad because he would be the hero. Subaru, with a little smile, replied that, until the end. Kazuki only heard what he wanted. His hand trembled, wavering, but he was not willing to give up just yet. In light of this, the traitor was surprised by the attitude of his former friend. Subaru then drew a legendary dagger called Aiolos from his inventory. The blonde was shocked to see that the weapon still had charges while the hero called him trash. Then, with the fan in hand, Subaru smiled and said he could use the item 4 more times. He looked back and saw that only 4 survivors from the guild remained. Then, with the power of the fan, he summoned a wild gust of wind to save his companions. The wind was so strong that it pushed everyone away from the battlefield. Watching this scene, the traitor let out a furious scream. Ordering his men to quickly catch the fugitives, the Murim Alliance soldier began to chase after the members of the Blue Eyes. But the fan, the noise, shone brightly with purple light. As he prepared for the worst, with a sinister smile, he declared that he would not let anyone pass. Then our boy stood up, determined to fight everyone to the end. The system warned that his fatigue had reached 95 and that his power had limits. Not caring about anything, he unleashed his ability and Lord Thunder descended with full force. Kazuku watched the scene, smirking, calling our hero a stubborn bastard for enduring the pain. Subaru stabbed himself, and the fatigue rose to 96. He wondered what reward the traitor had promised them, warning that he hoped they were ready to pay with their own lives. And look, Subaru was now starting to say that from there on, no one would leave without his permission. Seeing all that determination from the boy, one of the soldiers felt the disdain and despair of the whole situation. With no other choice, the warriors decided it was all or nothing and charged at the enemies. The enemy tried to strike the boy with a spear, but he managed to defend against the attack. Subaru thought he shouldn't lose to those guys, but the situation had changed. His body was at its limits, and he knew he needed to be cautious at every moment, fearing that Kazuki would decide to strike. His fatigue rose to 97. He thought his friends were far enough away and knew he couldn't prolong the fight. The enemy seized the opportunity to attack. Even extremely weak, Subaru managed to defend himself, but was pushed back due to the impact. Narukami Subaru's fatigue level climbed to 98, and to make matters worse, he started bleeding from his mouth. Even nearly fainting from exhaustion, the guy did not fall. He continued to face the soldiers fiercely, but in a moment of carelessness, one of the warriors managed to thrust a spear, and down it went, falling to the ground all bloodied. But Subaru had not kicked the bucket yet. The soldier, full of himself, thought he had defeated our hero, but he was very mistaken. With a look of fury, Narukami grabbed the soldier and challenged him. "Who was it? Who did you say killed your bastard?" Then, out of nowhere, an explosion of black lightning descended upon all the soldiers in the area, devastating everything. The warriors screamed as they were electrocuted by Narukami's insane power. One by one, they fell, utterly destroyed. With the fight almost over, our hero pulled out the dagger he had used to stay awake and focused. With the battlefield cleared, he fell to his knees, exhausted from fighting so hard. The remaining soldiers were in shock, wondering if they had truly managed to defeat the so-called monster. From afar, the traitor watched the scene, calling his former friend a true monster. The blonde thought that the era of Narukami had ended in an extremely ridiculous and mediocre way. Our hero's fatigue surged to 99, and the system gave the warning that he was going to die. But Narukami replied that the one who best knew how he was himself. Then, with a great effort, he stood up and shouted that he would continue fighting. With an enemy's spear in hand, he bellowed with all his might that victory was his, and he launched the weapon with incredible speed. A traitor smiled and activated the Archangel's blessing, protecting himself from the deadly attack, but was surprised that the ring did not work as he expected. The spear hit squarely, and he was left in shock. Narukami, for his part, stated that he was the true victor in a fight against himself. Lost in that darkness, reflecting on his death, suddenly a horrible smell hit his nose, and he realized he could still smell scents and odors. Then, a loud noise of a trash can lid brought him back to reality. Narukami woke up inside a dumpster in an extremely filthy alley, wondering if this bizarre place was the hell everyone feared. But look, the system screen appeared again, showing his new name, Subaru Narukami, with very weak attributes. A headache surfaced, and he began to absorb the memories of the owner of the body, who was being bullied for being considered too weak. Useless. Pathetic. A solitary tear rolled down his eye as he tried to understand the whole situation. He found out that Subaru Narukami had died 20 years ago and realized he was in another body. Desperate, he questioned whether all of this was madness. As he tried to get out of the dumpster, he lost his balance and fell to the ground. Then, amidst the mess on the floor, our hero spotted a tablet nearby. Still trying to grasp the situation, he saw the tablet and recognized it as a player kit. Without wasting any time, he began using the device to search for information about his former guild, Blue Eyes. He discovered that the guild had undergone a change and was now called Blue Zone, with Kazuki becoming the new master. But upon seeing the traitor's photo, Narukami was shocked, wondering how he was still alive. This made him reminisce about the past, how Kazuki, who was now his enemy, had first approached him and said he was thinking about quitting the guild. Narukami was surprised. The friend asked him to share the news with the rest of the team. Kazuki said he would understand the reason later, but our hero was worried about their friendship. The blonde reassured him, saying he would be his shadow. Years later, while creating his own guild, called Blue Zone, Narukami wondered why the traitor hadn't made any progress in 20 years. Another tear fell as he realized how much had happened while he was away. The tablet displayed a place called Subaru Narukami Memorial Hall, leaving him completely shocked. When he looked ahead, he realized he was in front of the memorial itself. Wow, the guy started sweating. He admitted that the building was much more impressive than he had imagined. Inside, there was a big screen displaying images of his past and various people idolizing him, admiring Narukami. The boy wondered what was the point of all that remembrance after so much time. He looked at his image on the screen, questioning who had done this and why. Not understanding the tribute, he began to bring his hand to his head. He heard a recording saying that he was an example to everyone. The voice called him the hero of Blue Eyes and the closest to the top of the tower. She claimed that, along with her companions, they decided to take him to eternity. Narukami was in shock, sweating profusely upon hearing that. The recording still revealed that they had created that memorial hall in his honor. Then, filled with rage, he bared his teeth, imagining who was responsible. The image of Kazuki appeared, and Narukami was screaming his name, overflowing with hatred. Then, the blonde began to say that this Blue Zone was the only guild that would inherit the noble spirit. And then the guy simply revealed himself to be the great hindrance who was not satisfied just with ending his life. The traitor proclaimed that they would never return, but Narukami promised that he would see, only concluding his false false speech with the statement that the memory would never be forgotten. Almost with a sinister smile, Narukami swore that he would rewrite this entire story from scratch. Then, with an extremely determined look, he made the promise that he would not let the traitor escape this time and that he could not waste this second chance. Suddenly, he bumps into a boy who falls to the ground, groaning in pain. Subaru, always attentive, extends his hand to the fallen boy and asks if he is okay, but the kid stands frozen, locked in the gaze of Subaru's eyes. His expression screams, utterly shocked, and as if that wasn't enough, he soon realizes that the young man is wearing a mask he knows all too well. At that moment, two people appear and question whether the guy named Minato actually got hurt. Subaru feels his heart freeze as he sees that they were also wearing the masks of his former guild, and confusion explodes in his mind. He runs his hand across his own face, trying to understand this bizarre and surreal situation. His thoughts whirl like a tornado. He wonders what the hell is going on, man? What's happening around him? Then, when he looks around, he notices that everyone there is also wearing a mask, and this only escalates the chaos in his mind. He recalls the traitor's words. It was a great hero, thinking that everything would end like this. The realization finally sinks in. He begins to comprehend the wicked play that the traitor had set up. With hatred burning in his eyes, he murmurs the traitor's name and throws himself into the masked crowd. Making himself invisible, before him an altar appears with his photo, flowers, and lit candles in tribute. Shark wonders if all of this is just a farce to steal the glory from his guild. Shock takes over him as he realizes the audacity of his former traitorous friend. But then, out of nowhere, a blue light starts shining intensely among the flowers on the altar. He focuses his gaze on this strange light and, without thinking, begins to push through the crowd toward the altar. People get irritated and shout at him to get a grip and wait his turn in line, but he ends up falling to his knees right in front of the memorial, and his hands touch the flowers that glow with that bluish energy. Picking one of the flowers, the energy feels familiar, and he recognizes it from an old teammate. Far away, atop a building, a hooded figure observes everything with an impressive calm. He remarks that they managed to go over a year without any trouble. His partner adds that they nearly bumped into the folks from the blue zone, and then the partner asks if they really need to hold a ceremony every year. But Shigura replies that it's good to be cautious, right? Then, with an extremely sly smile, he says that maybe Subaru will notice the flowers he left as a gift. The partner doubts Subaru is still alive, but Shigure says he hasn't checked with his own eyes yet. The hooded figure thinks it's more likely that Kazuki will find them before they find Subaru, and grows irritated, for if the leader were alive, they wouldn't have stayed still for so long. The scene shifts to reveal a magnificent sunset with birds flying in the sky. Then, we return to our hero, who is out of breath but with a look full of hope. He wonders if his old teammate is still alive, and after so much time apart, with a flower in hand, he processes the possibility that she might have escaped. It feels like a miracle, and in a whisper, he firmly pronounces the name Shigure. Later, he finds himself in Subaru's room and notices how simple the place is. On the device, he searches for information about his old guild, but finds nothing, even though he is convinced that Shigure survived. Frustration hits hard when thinking that it has been hidden for 2 decades. Even so, Subaru soon concludes that Kazuki is the real problem, as he would not let the truth leak. Confronted with this idea, he wonders if Suguru really stayed on his own, and if the other 3 escaped too. But, with the traitor loose, trying to make any contact is like asking to be taken out. And of course, without being able to force the situation, it would only endanger everyone. Observing the flower and the mask, he understands that he needs to take the first step. So, with determination in his eyes, Subaru decides that he has to regain his old power. Guided by Rosoi's memories, he picks up a practice sword that is there in the room. 2 days later, the long-awaited tutorial to become a player finally begins. For him, the idea is clear. If he continues to survive this trial, everything will fall into place. And he believes that as long as they are alive, he will be able to reunite with everyone. Scene cuts to a colossal coliseum, the examination hall of the tutorial. Inside, bodies are sprawled across the floor, showing the difficulty of the test that no one expected. A bald, bearded man named Ugar observes everything with an extremely serious expression. Nearby, a young warrior is panting, trying to finish off some green creatures. The examiner Gar looks at the kid and comments that he faced very little in the test. Gar asks if the boy wants to continue, but he is confused by the offer. A dirty screen explains that with each step, a new goblin appears, and the rewards increase, but the young man immediately declines. The other guy remarks that he shouldn't even bother listening to such an idea. Despite this, the warrior bets that the important thing is that he managed to pass the test anyway. The examiner is disappointed to have to let such a weakling pass, and complains that only Isaac, who has passed phase 20, seems promising. Then, with a disdainful look, Gar complains about the low quality of recruits this year, but suddenly something on his board catches his attention and he focuses on the arena. It was Subaru entering with the sword in hand. Ready for combat, he reads the name Subaru Rosoi and comments that this is a heavy name to carry, right? Then, he is informed that Subaru can only use that name if he passes the test. Subaru agrees, and in the next moment, a screen appears in front of him to start the challenge. So, check this out. The system decides to bring to life 2 goblins, and the mission is quite simple. Eliminate these creatures. The examiner prepares to start the tutorial, but is suddenly interrupted by a blur speeding by. Before he could finish his sentence, our hero had already dispatched the 2 monsters. The entire place, confused, wonders what that flash was that passed by him. The examiner, incredulous, just stared. The goblin parts were already flying across the arena. Our hero smiles, realizing that testing the limits of this new body was the right move. That new form he acquired is, in fact, quite extraordinary. The screen pops up, asking if he wants to move on to the next step, and he accepts right away. The examiner, mouth agape, is shocked by the boy's speed, and before he could grasp what was happening, the arena was already filled with bodies. The waiter, completely lost, wonders what the hell is going on. Then, the examiner watches the boy fighting and realizes he's not just attacking. It seems our hero is reading every enemy movement, anticipating everything by 2 or 3 steps. With the sword in hand, he relentlessly slaughters. The waiter thinks this is not just sword skill. Even he could not pull that off. So, with a knowing smile, our protagonist is completely in control. The examiner begins to suspect and thinks the boy may be the reincarnation of Subaru Narukami. Then, with a precise strike, our hero finishes off another goblin and, turning around, faces the last one remaining. Then a screen appears indicating he has completed step 49, asking about the boss. Even all sweaty and panting, our boy decides that since he has come this far, he can proceed. He's exhausted but realizes he needs to continue to finish the tutorial. Out of nowhere, a blue energy begins to erupt from the ground of the arena as if there were no tomorrow and goes straight for our hero. A monstrous and dark hand emerges. The final challenge. The examiner panics and screams that he is not Narukame to face all of this. The boy yells for the guy to stop if he wants to get out alive, but it's too late for advice. The ground trembles and the final boss appears. It is the Goblin King, furious with so many sacrifices. Seeing that monster, the examiner screams for him to give up. It's madness to fight that thing. The examiner insists that this is suicide, that the difference between them is absurd. The boy knows that with the status he has, he won't achieve anything, but he refuses to leave the battle. Then, out of nowhere, he surprises everyone by dropping his sword and saying he won't fight. The Dominators, panicking, question whether the guy has finally lost it. Then the Goblin King charges at our hero, who is unarmed at that moment. An object appears and hits the monster's shoulder, catching it completely off guard. The creature looks at its leg and sees a very thin needle embedded there, clueless. Then a drop of sweat rolls down the Goblin King's face as he is confused by what just happened. He focuses on our protagonist, who is crouched on the ground, smiling while picking something up. The boy then proposes a wager to the tutorial final boss, challenging the creature to see who can take the other down first. Looking closely at the fight, he laughs and says he will turn the monster into just pockets of honey. With his eyes shining, he then sends the needles towards the goblin, and with insane speed, the Goblin King fills with rage and wants an answer to the challenge. The creature charges, opening its mouth, ready to devour our hero. The monster raises its axe and brings it down to crush the boy. The axe must be heavy, but Subaru is faster and dodges in time. Throwing himself to the side and crouching on the ground, he observes the monster, waiting for the right moment to attack. He is then overwhelmed by a memory from the past that only helps in the battle. In the flashback, we see his former self practicing throwing at a tree. A woman named Rina appears, scolding him and saying he can't throw like that. Then, with a smile, she teaches that anything can be a weapon. If you know how to use the right point, then the object she threw will hit the target, proving the effectiveness of the training. Back to reality, the needles hit the Goblin King's face, causing him to scream in pain. Then, with a roar of agony, he begins to fall backward, devoid of strength. The boy explains that the power comes from rotation and precision. Without hesitation, with a serious look, he remembers that it was Reina who taught him all of this. Subaru realizes that the poisoned needles are still there and used that to his advantage. The examiner is shocked as he used the sword and hidden weapons to win the fight. Then, with horror running across his face, the examiner admits that the boy in front of him is a true genius. The Goblin King, covered in little puncture wounds, lets out a roar of pain, but he is already quite weakened from the poison, and finally, the monster can't bear it anymore and falls to the ground, completely defeated. Then our boy approaches and picks up the sword again, preparing to deliver the final blow, saying he has nothing against this creature, but he needs to finish this tutorial quickly. With a precise strike, our hero dispatches the creature and finishes finishes the battle once and for all. Then, the system announces that he has defeated the Goblin King and completed step 50 of the tutorial. Exhausted, our Dark Prince complains that a monster like this shouldn't even be in the tutorial. With the victory, several screens pop up in front of him, filled with rewards, points, and level up. Our hero wonders what he can acquire with those 2,425 points. He opens the shop and takes a look at the cheap items, but he knows that there will be a crazy bill left over. But, as he scrolls down, he sees something that would leave anyone in shock. A nameless demonic sword, made by Quindial, and he can't believe what he sees. The sword is tempting, but he realizes that the lightning skill already consumes a lot of his life. Then he finds the holy sword Miranda, which appears to be a much more sensible and safe choice. Our boy is in doubt. Will he go for destructive power or the security of the other weapon? So, with the scale in his mind, he knows he needs to decide carefully how to spend your points. Suddenly, he notices something strange on the store screen that catches his attention and discovers he can still scroll down to see more items in the store. He finds the skill Wedge of Greed. In this skill, supreme the side effects of the item. Our hero realizes that with this, he can negate the negative effects of the sword and the lightning. Then, Gara, betting, notices the kid's choice and comments that he opted for the demonic sword. Gara praises the choice and says that the items match, but he doesn't understand the reasoning. Why, at the very least, did he choose such a risky and obscure ability? Our hero, annoyed, asks if the guy really wants a detailed explanation. He gets flustered, thinking about how difficult it is to communicate formally with a superior. Seeing that reaction, he gives him a break, thinking the guy must be tired from the exam. The boy remembers that the brat from the past became the supervisor. He recalls young Ugar, embarrassed, having asked for an autograph, but in his previous life he had dismissed the fan. The boy insisted, asking him to just put his name in the notebook. Then, back to the present, Gar complains about the lack of manners, and our boy doesn't miss the chance to mock. He says he won't answer and requests confidentiality about the test results. The examiner gets extremely furious and declares he will teach the boy some manners. He invites him to the guild cavalry, but our hero declines. Right away, a screen pops up asking if he wants to go to the second floor, and he accepts without hesitation. This makes our boy disappear while Gar screams desperately for him to wait, leaving him alone. The place witnesses the kid's attitude and sighs in frustration. Meanwhile, Subaru finally arrives on the second floor of the Grand Tower. This is a very busy place, the land of beginnings. He looks around, realizing he has returned to the place after a long time. Subaru knows he has a 1-2 chance and cannot waste this opportunity, since he has lived through it all once and has to get everything right this time, for his companions who may be waiting and for his revenge. So, with his goal firmly in mind, he heads to a private training room to test his new abilities. When he arrives, the attendant asks which floor he came from, and Subaru replies that he just came up. The old man recommends room 1, which has a simple straw dummy, but Subaru ignores him and requests room 5, leaving the man extremely confused. The attendant insists it's a waste of money, but our protagonist doesn't care. He grabs 30 minutes of credit and rushes to the training room he chose. The training rooms become heavier as the number increases. That's where he underestimated it. With his hand on the door, he prepares to enter and start his special training. Inside, which looks more like an ancient ruin, Subaru declares that it's time to begin, gripping his new demon sword tightly, ready to test its power. Then, the system notifies that the unnamed magic sword has recognized the user, and a red aura emerges. Crazy enough, all his abilities temporarily increase, but this consumes his human life, causing him pain. The Dome of Greed, then, manages to resist the negative effects of the weapon for a bit, restoring part of his life, but that ability is still at a weak level and can't fully withstand the sword's power. Thus, the sword ends up draining Subaru's life, boosting his abilities as his life fades away. With his face covered in blood, he wonders if this is truly his limit, but soon concludes that this was already expected. He invests 10,000 credits to boost his skill. With that, the Guilt of Greed rises to level 2, suppressing the worst side effects of the sword. Now the ability resists, and part of it is truly the weapon's power, sticking the sword firmly into the ground. Even so, the unnamed magic sword continues to drain his life. His abilities have diminished even more, and with a focused stare, he finally manages to control this power. Thus, our boy gets ready to test all his power at once. Then, with a shout, our boy decides it's time to show his strength and delivers a powerful strike in the room. Meanwhile, outside, the receptionist was in Zen mode, taking one of those well-deserved naps at his desk. Suddenly, he woke up groggy, feeling a strange presence approaching him. The old man rubbed his eyes, uncertain if he was still dreaming or experiencing some hallucination. Meanwhile, our hero was leaving the training room, leaving a trail of blood on the corridor floor. The receptionist was shocked, as not even 10 minutes had passed since the young man had entered there. Worried, he went to the door and knocked, asking if the dreamer boy was still inside. The old man opened a crack in the door to see what was going on inside. Then, my friend, upon looking, let out a gasp of surprise, shocked by the scene he saw in the room. My brother, everything was destroyed, shattered, and he wondered, damn brother, what kind of hell had happened in there? In another corner, our hero woke up in his room with the sunlight blazing on his face, stretching and asking, damn, how long have I been asleep? Noticing that his body was still too stiff, Subaru thought that if it were a normal cursed sword, he wouldn't have gotten away so easily, right? No. Sitting then in a cafe, he realized that the weight of his body had decreased, and he managed to draw power from the weapon. So, with his current status, our boy shouldn't even be able to lift a sword, much less use it, right? This meant that the compatibility between the greed dome and the sword was simply too perfect. Then, with a little smile, he thought of a combination with his lightning ability. That was also the key to success. But the deal now was the level of abilities, since he only had 50 credits to spend. That's when our hero started complaining that now he had to deal with credit management, which had dropped significantly and was very low. Then, out of nowhere, a cheerful, blonde guy appeared, grabbing everyone's attention. A streamer, in turn, received a donation of 1,000 credits from a fan named Alex. He was all happy, almost bouncing with joy, but in the heat of the moment, he accidentally spilled his entire coffee all over himself. He didn't thank for the donation anyway. Right? Not at all, newbie. From that scene, our protagonist watched from a distance and wondered if the guy was completely nuts. Then, with a keen eye, Subaru began to understand what was going on at the location. Using his tablet, he saw the article on how to earn points and uncovered the new era of live broadcasts. That was when he realized what the little blonde was up to. But suddenly, someone called his name. Subaru was a guy with silver hair, well-dressed, who approached with a friendly demeanor. He came over and said, "What a crazy coincidence to see you here. Are you living nearby?" Subaru felt a shiver and noticed that his body instinctively reacted to the newcomer. Then, with a sarcastic tone, the young man complained that it seemed Subaru was ignoring him, talking to himself. Subaru then remembered that it wasn't discomfort. He had just gotten to that floor, right? The man leaned over the table, saying it was madness. He then turned around with a sly smile and remarked that he never would have imagined a scrawny guy like him would breeze through the tutorial so easily. This left Subaru feeling strange, extremely irritated, and he finally recognized that face from the past, the former owner of the body. He asked why he was there doing that, and Isaac, the young man, looked at Subaru with disdain and told him not to make that face. The crazy guy got angry and said his name annoyed him and that Subaru didn't know how to follow simple orders. Subaru then shouted that the credits he had given were not enough to complete that mission. Wow! Isaac now got furious and told Subaru to shut up, throwing a punch with all his strength to his face. Then, with a cruel smile, he showed a box and said that from then on, this would be his new home, threatening with what would happen if he left the trash can. Back to the present, Subaru finally figured out why he was in that trash can. Meanwhile, Isaac bragged that he had even cleared step 20 and broken the supervisor's record. The guy kept acting smug, claiming to have learned a rank B skill as a reward from the tutorial. Our protagonist stood up to leave, trying to act calm, right? And asked Isaac not to rush in his conversation, but Subaru was told to buy a coffee on the way, saying it could be any kind, even a cheap one. Isaac was confused by the attitude and complained that Subaru was still disobedient as always. Man, the guy was getting more and more stressed. He wanted to know what was wrong with Subaru, as if his soul had been switched to another body or something like that. Subaru then replied that he had credits and told Isaac to buy his own coffee. With no patience and a serious look, his voice firm, Isaac told Subaru to sit back down, thinking he didn't have time to deal with that brat. Subaru decided that if he was going to be interrupted, the conversation would change tone. So, determined, he made it clear that he would not allow anyone to interfere with his plans from now on. Seeing our boy's attitude, Isaac got annoyed and grabbed Subaru by the arm with all his strength, trying to stop him. Then, with red eyes full of rage, he threatened Subaru, asking what would happen to runaway garbage. But Subaru, extremely firm, stared at Isaac and told him to back off if he knew what was good for himself. Isaac, muscular and furious, adjusted the pressure on his arm, yet Subaru still faced him, telling him to let go of his arm. Isaac's eyes shone with anger as he tightened his grip even more. Totally out of patience, Subaru thought that maybe he couldn't cause a scene right there, as it would only make things worse for him. But Isaac, seeing his calmness, began to laugh, believing the situation was extremely hilarious. He then said not to be afraid, as it was just a scare, like in the old times, right? No, Isaac found all this a bad joke, mocking him, saying that the bully probably didn't even pass the tutorial with those pathetic skills of his. Then, our tough guy stepped forward, staring the bully down as if to say, "All right, brother, I'm here." And then, Isaac, all full of himself, called Subaru trash and challenged him. "You want to fight, you little brat? I can make you disappear." He let go of Subaru's arm with a sly smile, but it was nothing but fake. Subaru looked back with disdain, thinking, what's this talk about being friends? I'm not buying into that idea. And then a screen appeared explaining that players have two main ways to evolve. The first is through the trials that the Grand Tower offers, where guys can get stronger by going through challenges and earning experience and rewards. The second is hunting monsters or clearing dungeons, which is a much faster way to evolve, right? But here's the problem. Since the hunting fields are in the real world, if you die there, that's it, man. It's over. So, with that, the scene shifts and takes us to see a feared dungeon, the realm of the Whispering Orcs. And that's why many players ran away from challenges like this. But Subaru, oh, he thought differently. Sitting next to a defeated orc, he faced the situation and realized that the safer it was, the slower the process. Mind you, on the other hand, the harder the challenge, the faster his growth would be through pain, and he knew that. So, after a brief rest, our brave hero picks up his tablet to check out the news. Browsing, he comes across a streamer who is using his old name, Narukame Subaru, and has 80,000 people watching the live stream. Wow, that's a lot of people, my dude! The fraud shouts excitedly that he's going to challenge the approval of the third floor of the tower. His noise becomes extremely furious, thinking about how many idiots are using his name and his mask out there without even asking for permission. Out of nowhere, a mission for 20,000 credits pops up. The streamer excitedly thanks for the donation. This leaves his noise in shock, not believing the guy's luck, thinking he'd never have a mission of that level. And while the streamer is there filling his pockets easily, our hero is risking his life to get stronger. So with only 50 credits in his bag, his noise complains, and this fraud is making a fortune? Damn, my brother. And he keeps watching the stream when an idea pops into his head, right? And he sighs, gets up, and prepares for the next battle, grabbing his powerful demonic sword. So, with a smile on his face, he declares, I'm going to, make my work the heaviest yet, and that's it. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking and a giant orc foot appears in front of him, as if it wanted to crush him. An insane horde of enraged orcs makes its entrance, triumphant, ready for a real slaughter in the dungeon. The system soon notifies that the dungeon boss, General Orc, has finally shown his face. The boy faces all the orcs and points out, look, now I have something much better than poisonous needles. He activates his sword, which consumes his HP. But in the wedge of greed, he maintains resistance to the furious effect. Our hero bids farewell to the chatter. I don't have much time for trash like you, and delivers a precise strike, cutting several orcs in half. General Orc was petrified upon seeing Subaru bend down to make his final attack. Then, with an extremely determined look, the boy finishes the blow that would put an end to that chaos once and for all. After the fight, he holds his mask and assures that he will use it again. There's no other way. So, back in his room, the realization hits. This is how he makes the money, right? If he's going to do it, it might as well be for real. With the mask in hand, he takes a deep breath, stating that he will give it everything he's got, and it's quite something, from what can be gathered. After that, our hero puts on his old mask and prepares for whatever comes next. With the sword on his back, he confidently steps out onto the street because he knows he is the real Subaru. In the meantime, a notification pops up on the screen. Narukami Subaru has started a live broadcast. The scene shifts to an empty office of Soteria Entertainment, where a woman in traditional taco attire watches something on the device. Clearly irritated, she can't hide her disgust at what she sees on the screen and becomes furious. Suddenly, she stands up and kicks her coworker, who jumps in surprise and turns his head. She curses the streamer as trash and complains that not even 5 people could get past that point. The coworker asks what's going on, and she tells him angrily the guy's name. It's Subkit. The man, now more intrigued, asks if this guy is just another fraud, and she replies that he might be a hybrid of 2 types. He complains that everyone is cosplaying as Subaru, and she asks him not to say such bizarre things. The guy says even players find it boring and easily refers to her as Ratuga. In light of this, Ratsuga questions why he gave up. While showing a sad demeanor, the young man with blue hair justifies himself by saying he found the proposal so dull. He mentions that she had also given up and would look for new talent if she were free. Then, with an extremely nostalgic smile, he recalls, I wanted to meet Subaru, that's why I got discouraged. The guy shouts that there's an incredible boy here, and the woman asks if he found another crazy person. She then notices the new cosplay of Narukami Subaru, and the young man finds all of this very absurd. The man complains, and she is looking at a live stream with 0 viewers, eventually agreeing with that, right? But the girl reveals that whenever she spots someone with that mask, she can't help but feel hopeful. Suddenly she sends 1,000 credits as a gift. The young man kneels, apologizing and begging his colleague for forgiveness. The scene shifts back to our hero as he begins the approval process for the second floor to clear the dungeon. Even so, our boy felt a weight on his shoulders, as if he were being watched by invisible eyes. In the live stream, a viewer named Love Money asked an intriguing question, which floor he was on, and if it was his first time. Narukami Subaru, with a sparkle in his eyes, confirmed, yeah man, this is my first big challenge. But Love Money still worried. Is it okay to stream this? You might not know the way properly, right? And out of nowhere, a monster that looked more like a bat appeared, flying straight for our hero. The creature lunged at him, trying to bite his mask, but it failed miserably. Then, with agility that would leave anyone drooling, Subaru simply grabbed the creature with his hands and tossed it away. The system announced that the bat had been defeated, and full of confidence, he asked, "So, is everything all right, my brother?" Soon, the system announced that the approval for the second floor of the dungeon had begun. 3 viewers were now in the live stream. One of them started congratulating him for his reflexes, while the other suggested waiting for a group. "Thanks for the tip, but that's not gonna happen. I prefer to face everything alone." He was firm in his decision. The viewers began to laugh at him, thinking he was just another novice. With the mask of the great hero, Subaru thought to himself that if Zei mastered the kami, it was because he attracted so many people. Then, out of nowhere, as if the situation wasn't enough already, a grotesque creature resembling a fish charged fiercely at him. Without showing any weakness, our hero steadied his demon sword and prepared to annihilate the beast. Then, with a lightning movement, he sliced the creature in half and declared that he was there to see how far he could go. Notification from the system lit up the screen. Monster down. The live audience was in shock, not understanding anything. Then, a swarm of insane bats appeared, diving towards him, but the fearless noise threw itself into the midst of the attack. He began to slice everything in sight, as if engaged in an epic massacre. The gleam in his eyes showed that he was absolutely in control of the situation. The viewers, now completely speechless, began to wonder what was going on. As the audience exploded to 10 people, the system confirmed all the defeats, and he told everyone to pay attention to the sounds of the monsters. Realizing the ground was carpeted with monsters, the spectators changed their minds about his innate skill. Narukami Subaru then dared to guess what he was thinking while they discussed his feats, but he felt it was still not enough. He wanted to rack up as many points as possible before leaving that place. An extremely concerned viewer asked if he had been fine all this time, while others warned of the danger. Ignoring the warnings, the boy proceeded confidently through the dungeons without any hesitation, focused and clear-headed about what he was doing. In the midst of that threatening scene, he suddenly found himself at the edge of an abyss, where a horde of strange monsters awaited him. One of the monsters stared back with its hypnotizing red eye, ready for a fight. The spectators followed the scene with anticipation, believing that he was in big trouble. That's right, but then it won't turn into a mission. It appeared without credits for him to defeat them all. Everyone thought it was a trap, and, in response, Subaru, not so quiet anymore, thanked the donor for the reward, leaving everyone confused by his calmness. A little further away in the office, a blue-haired guy was gripping his fist tightly, showing all his frustration. He let out a cry of despair, questioning what he had done wrong, when everything was going so well and suddenly he had failed the mission he was given. Then, feeling ashamed, he apologized to his colleague for being so loud, admitting his mistake, and the girl, focused on her device, seemed not to have noticed all that noise at all. The curious guy asked what she was watching and realized that the place was strangely silent. Then he started to panic, offering to pay her what he should, no problem, but the girl ignored him, her gaze fixated, spotting something on the screen that shocked her. She sighed while saying the name Narukami Subaru. The partner was intrigued and asked if she was following that live stream. He then took a look at the screen and was left speechless by what he was seeing in that broadcast. Our hero was in the midst of a real massacre, and everyone was wondering how this guy was handling so many monsters at once, right? Then, with an extremely swift strike, he sliced through 3 more creatures at once, demonstrating his innate ability. And that's his barrow. Everyone in the live stream started to go into shock, and a viewer asked for whoever he called a rookie to introduce themselves. Subaru paused for a second and commented that communication with the creatures wasn't very easy. A viewer reminded him that he had to accept the mission credits and, somewhat distracted, he said he had forgotten. Then he quickly picked up his tablet to finish the mission he received from the donor. The viewers, intrigued by that delay, began to question whether he was having connection problems with the live stream. Then, hand on his head, Subaru wondered how he would accept the credits, and everyone started to laugh. One of the viewers, feeling good, gave him a boost and helped him get the reward. He sent a thank you to everyone for their help. Then, with 20 viewers on the live stream, Subaru announced that the next one would be the last, and proceeded with a sword on his back. The scene cut to a building at night. Meanwhile, in the office, the girl was covering her mouth, embarrassed, while her colleague was panicking. But the guy called her dramatic, stating that it was just the second floor. She retorted, asking if he had ever seen anything like it. Then, angrily, she stood up and shouted, confirming that of course she was being dramatic. He quickly apologized for the comment. The girl then remembered an old interview and wondered if meeting that guy was fate. She got even more excited and exclaimed that he could be even less than the embodiment of Naruto, just like the stories she had read. With her hand on her head, she felt everything spinning and asked her partner what would happen if she closed her eyes. The guy panicked and shouted shouted no, asking if she was thinking of bringing the streamer to his agency. The girl thought it was a brilliant idea, but her colleague warned that he was just a rookie streamer and very lonely. He insisted that she wasn't seeing the reality and that the boss would freak out if he found out about this risky bet they were making. Then, with a determined look and full of courage, she told him to wait and see what would happen with the new talent. And then, she turned back to the device and resumed watching the live stream, super focused on the development of our hero in the dungeon. Meanwhile, Subaru, the new champion, finally reached a huge stone structure waiting for him at the end of the path. He stopped in front of a gigantic door and declared that this was the end of the dungeon he had been seeking. The stone door loomed like a true monster as our boy prepared himself, because things were about to get insane. Then, with his hand outstretched, he moved towards the door to discover what was behind it. On the other side, he faced a gigantic creature, part werewolf, sitting on the ground. This is the wolf warrior Greg, and everyone watching comments on how the pressure he exudes is on another level. A screen appears, and the mission is simply to win the approval of this dungeon guardian. Subaru realizes that he is not a beast to be slain, but rather the doorkeeper who judges the players. Out of nowhere, another mission pops up on the screen stating that if he defeats the wolf warrior, the reward is a huge sum of money. Dude, our hero nearly fell back upon seeing that the reward for the mission is around 3,000 credits all at once. Watching the scene, everyone in the live chat starts shouting that this monster wasn't meant to be taken down by anyone. Since the year of warnings, the wolf warrior begins to rise slowly, preparing for battle. And, as if he had decided it was time, the creature stands up with a deadly gaze directed at Subaru. Then, with a wicked smile, he addresses the user, ready to start the upcoming fight. At that moment, a memory from the past surfaces, and a feminine voice praises our hero for his battle skills. A friend with white hair observes and comments on how Subaru's breathing and eyes are steady during the fight. He wonders if our hero calculates his opponent's movements and plans everything in advance. In the flashback, the boy seems distant while his intrigued friend watches. In the memory, Subaru says he is not thinking of anything significant, and his friend considers him boring. Back in the present, he recalls that what's important is to perceive things in the heat of battle. He notices that the bats attack from above, and the more there are, the greater the opportunity to strike. A new screen appears, and the mission is to be recognized by the great wolf warrior. Greg watches with suspicion as João claims he is truly alone. The wolf insists, but the masked one replies that it's obvious he's there by himself. Then the guardian praises him, saying that he is interesting and he can smell a great warrior. Subaru thinks that the wolf tribe has a keen sense of smell. The monster explains that it's not the scent of flesh, but the essence of an authentic warrior. With that, the wolf declares that the test is over. And while Subaru can proceed, our hero gets confused and mentions that his real goal is to take down the Guardian himself. The monster becomes extremely perplexed, asking if he isn't referring to that door back there. Then, with a serious expression, Subaru confirms, revealing that someone sent him to take out the wolf. The Guardian smiles, saying that this is typical of someone with a warrior's soul. Then the scene cuts to a plant vase in a well-lit modern office. The girl and her colleague are in front of their boss, who is buried in work, his hands flying over the keyboard. The agency's boss asks how many viewers are in the live stream. The blue-haired guy says the live has about 20 people, but the girl quickly corrects him and, with a smile, reveals that there are already 30, making her partner irritated with the correction. The boss gets furious about the whole situation and asks if they are working for free. He complains that he knows they are betting and asked someone to do a stream with 20 people. Hatsukawa insists that it's 30, and the boss completely loses it. The boss suggests that the girl should become a streamer because she's doing really well and gaining many fans. A partner beside him checks the screen and is shocked because the number has already surpassed 40. Meanwhile, back in the ring, Subaru stares down his opponent, the wolf warrior, preparing for that insane battle. The creature then displays its super sharp claws and charges forward, ready to tear our protagonist apart. Subaru tightly grips his demonic sword, promising himself not to think about anything at the time of the fight. The system warns that the weapon consumes his life in exchange for attributes, and he feels the pain of the power. But at the anchor of the claw, he resists the effect. The boy decides to fight as if it were the first time. Then, the wolf leaps at him with absurd speed, and without a second thought, Subaru drives his sword, colliding with the creature's claws in a spectacle of strength. The beast shines with an intense blue, ready to unleash a devastating blow, and the creature finally delivered a powerful strike. But our hero defends himself bravely, resisting the force of the impact. Wow, this is too good. Have you already left a like? What are you waiting for? Hit that like button, and if you haven't followed yet, go ahead and follow, right, my brother? Make sure you're following the channel. If you're not, follow right now. It's so insane that our boy is thrown back, showcasing the power of the beast in the fight. Subaru, our protagonist, recognizes the creature's strength as he tries to dodge the rapid attacks coming his way. He realizes that he cannot defeat this monster with brute strength, so it's time to come up with a plan. Even so, the Guardian gives a compliment, praising Subaru's grit. As expected from a strong warrior like him, the creature doesn't waste any time and attempts a spinning strike, but our boy dodges with impressive skill and agility, shouting that the monster is no match for him. Then, with that, he grips the handle of his demonic sword, ready to strike back at the beast. The audience is in shock, commenting that Subaru is just defending himself, but he is absurdly strong. The folks on the live stream speculate that whoever issued the mission must be regretting it because Subaru keeps a smile on his face the whole time. In the challenges, Subaru says that sometimes there is a more effective way to succeed, and it isn't through brute force. At that moment, the Guardian prepares to deliver the final blow and warns that our hero's fight is over. Then, with an explosive attack, the creature destroys the arena floor, but Subaru disappears and, with his red eyes glowing, says that the harsh speech is actually his. The wolf is shocked to realize Subaru is right behind him, commenting that the attacks are very predictable, and our hero, dodging the strike, finds it easy to escape that wolf's charge. Then, with a bold leap, he delivers a fatal blow to the creature's neck, which screams in pain as the blade hits its target. The surprise on Subaru's face is clear as he prepares to end the fight once and for all. Then, with a swift and precise movement, he unleashes a powerful cut with the demonic sword. Subaru's eyes shine with an intense red light as he finishes the attack on the defeated creature that falls to the ground. And the Guardian, even at the end, doesn't hesitate to praise him, calling him a magnificent warrior. The system alerts that Subaru has defeated the wolf, and he is rewarded with a level up and a status increase. Additionally, he earns 500 achievement points, leaving the viewers in shock at the impressive scene. Then, with his face smudged with dirt, Subaru confirms that he has won against the creature, and the live stream rises to 56 viewers. Wow, that's quite a lot for someone who started with so little. The mission completes, and he receives about 3,000 credits, thanking the donor for the money. The credit points keep increasing, and the great door to the dungeon finally opens for him. However, when he looks at the door, Subaru notices something strange and is quite surprised. Large screens appear in front of him, revealing several elemental trials to choose from. Everyone in the live chat starts saying that, depending on the choice, they might see the player's talent reflected. The system then poses the question of whether he wants to challenge the lightning trial. The live chat goes into a frenzy, and Subaru quickly confirms without a second thought, saying he absolutely accepts the challenge. The system chants the confirmation, and the lightning trial is selected. To begin, Subaru steps through the light portal, disappearing towards his next challenge. Meanwhile, in the office, the agency team follows everything on a giant screen. In the room, the girl and her antics celebrate, shouting with joy at what just happened. She is excited because the numbers are climbing fast. He has 3 chances for the trial. The boss, impressed, mentions that he is rare, as they had said the wolf warrior had never been defeated. However, he thinks the risk of hiring a rookie from the second floor is too high. The girl, hearing this, dares the guy. She asks if he wants to make a bet. If he fails, they will join together and work for a fixed salary for 5 years. The partner panics, and he shouts that he doesn't want to be included, but the boss orders him to shut up. The boss is in doubt and says that the only player who has ever managed to get the thunder was Subaru Narukami. But the girl smiles and states that they will only know the result if they try, facing the boss with confidence, carrying the smile of someone who won't let it go. John, with a determined look, does not accept the proposal, while the girl covers her desperate partner's mouth. Then, within the portal, a screen appears. The system announces that the thunder approval has begun. Out of nowhere, Subaru notices something and shouts to a guy next to him to be careful, and without thinking, our hero pushes the guy, pulling him away from the danger. Suddenly, a colossal impact occurs, and a crater forms in the ground where they were. The guy who was saved is left speechless, watching a giant fragment of a monster that has appeared. He turns to Subaru, yelling if the guy wants to die for standing still there. A screen then appears with the mission to defeat the creature, and Subaru wonders what that monster is doing there. The monster roars in response, and the live audience is tremendously confused by the appearance of that giant creature. Subaru realizes that this monster was only supposed to appear in the second half of the test, and wonders if there was any change because he defeated the Guardian Greg ahead of time. Wow, that creature then smashes the ground with a punch, a brutal attack, but the noise dodges like a true ninja. He feels that it's time, and the saved guy shouts for him to run and not stay in the fight, but the noise has already decided it will end this quickly before anyone tries to interfere. So, with his sword in hand, he charges at the creature and the battle finally begins. Then, in an extremely agile move, he uses the monster's arm as a trampoline and leaps at the creature, striking fiercely. But the noise is already in the air, ready to retaliate. He firmly steps on the creature's arm, gaining momentum to climb even higher. Then, with his eyes glowing red, the noise prepares to deliver the final blow. With everything, the boy who was saved is left with his mouth agape, watching our hero fly to attack the monster. Then, without wasting any time, our hero quickly runs up the giant's body, searching for a weak point in the beast's neck. With a precise strike, his demonic sword pierces the monster's flesh with an absurd force. The giant emits an agonizing scream, confronted by the pain of the unexpected attack. But the noise doesn't relent. Disturbed by the deafening racket, he prepares to silence the creature once and for all. He wishes for the monster to be quiet forever, while gearing up for the final blow. Then, with a precise cut, he ends the existence of the creature, which collapses backward, defeated. The giant's eyes lose all their shine, and finally, the creature is vanquished. The system now informs that he has defeated the monster and leveled up, leaving the live audience in shock once again, gaining a pile of points and a stack of items. Among them, the giant's heart. The spectators can't believe the 4,000 points, realizing that he cleared the entire level. The boy he saved watches, still stunned by everything that happened. He asks Subaru what he really is, and the masked one replies that it's quite obvious, right? Just by looking. Subaru, with a calm demeanor, explains that he came only to defeat the giant. The scene cuts to the peaceful village surrounded by mountains. Several people roam the cobblestone streets, the tranquility of that little town. Inside a simple room, Subaru is sitting on the bed, snooping through his device. Everyone in the live chat is super curious and asks him to show the items he won in the battle. The boy agrees, since he also wants to be surprised, right? He decides to reveal his achievements. First, he shows the giant's heart, which is a rare ring that increases his health and recovery. Then comes a rare armor that grants him lightning powers and nullifies negative status effects. Subaru puts on the new armor and soon appears. A mission of 5,000 credits on the screen. Several other missions pop up on the display, and he thanks everyone for their support. Look at that. He starts to express gratitude and promises he will learn the lightning skill for them. Then he reflects on why so many people are waiting for that skill and realizes that his old identity was even more important than he imagined. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. That's the quiet sound. When the person enters, the young man he saved appears, accompanied by the serious blonde knight. The guy apologizes for the delay and introduces the village captain, who is called Lord. He mentions that the giant attacks have increased and that the knights are ready for action. For safety, they asked everyone to stay indoors. For some reason, the young man finds this all very strange, encountering a stranger in such complicated times. At this moment, the blonde knight thanks Subaru for protecting the village while he was away. Subaru shrugs it off, saying he did what he had to do but remembers the name of that knight, Peleus. He asserts that he is the face of the village and that fortunately, they discovered who the boss of the giants is. Then, with an extremely determined look, he warns that they are ready to risk their own lives to face the enemies, including pride. The knights and their partner kneel and ask Subaru to save the village. The noise falls silent as everyone in the live stream worries about Peleus's fate. Pulling from memory, he recalls what happened in the next phase of the story. He begins to remember that, in the original story, the blonde knight ended up dying. Then, returning to the present, Subaru extends his hand and asks the knight to lift his head. With a resolute look, he reaffirms that he will cooperate with everyone. The blonde knight says that was the way it should be. The system initiates Survival Phase 5 for Subaru, and thus, the army of knights advances alongside Subaru towards the great battle. As they march, Subaru takes a glance at his device to see the live broadcast. He realizes that, with so many people watching, the comments are scrolling by at lightning speed. He can't interact properly, can he? Suddenly, the captain of the knights orders everyone to stop because he feels something strange in the air. His partner points ahead, and everyone sees a colossal giant lying on the ground. It was the body of the giant chief, who appeared to be merely sleeping. A blonde knight comments that he will attract the monster's attention and asks Subaru to attack from behind, but Subaru stops him, placing a hand on the guy's shoulder and asking him to wait. What's up? Captain is confused by this behavior, while Subaru begins to say that this feels odd. Then, a mysterious light starts to shine on the ground near the fallen giant's body. The ground begins to tremble with uncontrollable force, and all the knights panic at the situation. With a serious look, Subaru realizes that what is there is not merely human. The giant's chest opens, revealing a strange and mysterious energy emanating from within. Then, a bunch of smaller monsters starts to emerge, with sinister grins, and the line of creatures advances unceasingly towards the knights, who are terrified. Peleus falls into despair and screams, not understanding the bizarre situation unfolding there. One of the giants also grabs a knight, who screams desperately, begging the creature to attack, but the monster simply ignores him and crushes him, while the poor guy pleads for help. He was begging, right? He was once my friend. Wow, the hero observed the scene. In the reflection of his gaze, the misfortune of his allies unfolded with a wicked smile plastered on his filthy face. The creature seemed to enjoy the slaughter. Seeing the chaos, the captain shouted for all his men to get out towards the mountains. The the monsters advanced mercilessly, and the slaughter of the knights began, without mercy or compassion. One of the creatures seized a knight who didn't even have time to react to the surprise attack. The young man, in total despair, screamed while his companions tried to hold him, back to prevent him from being obliterated. He cried out his brother's name, who was there, fallen in the line of the monster's attack. The captain, realizing the gravity of the situation, roared for everyone to get out of there as quickly as possible. The terrified knights hesitated, but one of them stood up and said that this was not the end for everyone. Thus, everyone began to run, and the captain shouted to our hero that he was counting on him. A blonde knight turned to Subaru with an extremely serious expression, but the boy stared back firmly, saying that those words were for him to use. Confused, the knight did not understand the situation, so Subaru questioned why he was not escaping yet. Subaru emphasized that he could not fight him there, as they could both end up dead. A blonde knight shouted that he could not abandon the outsider, but Subaru cut in, "Don't say it like that." The knight stepped back, asking our hero to hold on until he returned with support. The captain then took off at a sprint, asking Subaru to stay safe while he faced the monsters. With a thunderous yell, the horde of monsters charged in mass towards our hero. Then, fearless, Subaru ran towards the creatures with his sword drawn. With the sword raised, he warned that their true target was him. Subaru dodged an attack and quickly sliced the leg of one of the giants with impressive skill. Then, with a sweeping strike, he attacked a bunch of enemies at the same time. In the heat of battle, one of the creatures screamed in pain while the others were completely stunned. The system announced that he had already taken down 2 creatures and earned 20 conquest points. The noise commented that he was not used to being alone in battle. Meanwhile, the captain of the knights was sprinting through the forest in search of safety. He glanced back, troubled by what he was leaving behind on the battlefield. Breathless, the blonde knight continued his run without daring to look back. Then, with a determined face, he bit his lip and pressed on, distancing himself from that chaos. Back in the fight, the audience in the live stream noted that the score varies according to the number of soldiers. Subaru thought that now he had a chance to fight and save everyone, even those who were supposed to meet their end. Fueled by this idea, he faced the 2 remaining giants and positioned himself for the next attack, preparing a devastating blow. Left over, he cut down another giant and the system announced victory. He then moved on to the next and took down another creature, gaining 10 more points. The demon sword was draining his energy, and Subaru thought it was so difficult, since it was 1 by 1, but how long could he borrow the power of that weapon? He realized he needed to secure his vision and locate the boss of that order of monsters. Thus, he continued the massacre, slicing through another creature with his demon sword. Subaru leaped into the air, slicing multiple enemies in one fell swoop. Viewed from above, his attack was precise, delivering a fatal blow to the defeated monsters on the ground. The creatures tried to grab him mid-air, but he was too fast for them to reach. With a powerful kick, he struck one of the giants in the face with all his strength. Everyone in the live stream was horrified. One misstep, and it was over. In that situation, the fight was frantic. The Dome of Greed resisted the effect of the weapon, allowing his stamina and mental strength to recover. He knew he needed to find the boss quickly, before exhausting his power. Out of nowhere, he felt a powerful presence, and finally spotted the boss of the order. The boss emerged, a bearded giant with an evil smile and extremely sharp teeth. He attacked with his club, and our hero flew to dodge the blow, knowing that if one hit landed, it would be all over. Then, with an extremely serious look, the giant prepared to crush Subaru with his club. Subaru was hoping his plan would work, as he wouldn't get another chance. Then, with his hand extended, a massive energy gathered for his next attack. The system announced that he was using the skill Thunder Strike. With all his power, a colossal explosion of lightning wiped out the entire battlefield. The smaller giant screamed in agony, stunned by the force of that electric attack. Even the Order's boss, caught off guard, was forced to retreat from the furious impact. The giant monster shouted "Human!" with all that accumulated hatred. Subaru took advantage of the opening and climbed up the monster's arm to deliver the final blow with his demon sword. He prepared to finish off the entire fight by driving the sword into the giant's shoulder, which felt the weight of the strike. Then, with an extremely determined look, our boy continued to push the weapon deeper. Blood began to seep from the mouth of the giant boss, and his expression was completely surprised at the unexpected attack he had just received. With the colossal final blow, our brave hero finishes off the big guy with all the strength he has, a colossal monster lying on the ground, utterly defeated. The system displays the victory message. He advances to the next phase, achieving an incredible effect, leveling up and further enhancing his skills. The live audience goes wild, asking how the crazy guy manages to defeat a beast that seemed impossible to conquer. He reflects that, if he were in a manga, everything would have an epic conclusion, but the sky is still heavy with clouds and thunder, indicating that the approval is not over yet. The remaining giants surround our exhausted protagonist after that insane battle. The system informs that his skill failed to resist the power of the demon sword. Then, with his body at its limit, our boy begins to waver, barely able to stand, with no strength even to remain upright. Although still crouched, he realizes that even leveling up, the monsters are not going to disappear. He stands up, and struggling to try to walk across the battlefield, it is clear that the creatures will not vanish until this test truly ends. The trick he used before, which seemed so effective, is now causing him a lot of suffering. Then, with his face smeared in blood, our hero recognizes that things are looking quite grim for him, and then the realization hits. His strength has drained away, and the giants are preparing to deliver the final blow. Suddenly, a golden energy began to emanate from the ground, with absurd intensity, and then, with everything he has, our hero unleashes all of his power at once to try and end the chaos. The energy violently explodes, creating a huge crater in the ground. As if everything around had been pulverized, the scene shifts, leading us to the dense forest, away from the eyes of the world. Among the enormous trees, there is a secret place that seems well guarded. On the balcony of a wooden cabin, a girl with black hair is sitting, relaxing while playing on her console, focused on the game, not even noticing someone approaching. Suddenly, a guy with long silver hair appears, looking like someone quite familiar. He asks her what she's doing there. The girl casually replies that she's enjoying the day's atmosphere. She mentions that they should take advantage of this peaceful moment. The guy agrees, right? And says that there's not much time left, at most a year, for everything they are planning to happen. Then, with an extremely serious look, he states that it's already time to put an end to this situation. The guy gets annoyed and complains that she is distracted right in the middle of an important conversation. Then, he takes a step forward and asks what is so interesting on the device she is holding. She shows a picture and reveals that the name of the guy in the image is Subaru Narukami. Upon hearing this, the silver-haired guy freaks out, asking if it really is Subaru, but the girl tries to calm him down. She explains that it is just a streamer using his name, and we see our hero in a live stream with an extremely serious expression. The girl questions if her partner already knows the truth. She mentions that if the real Subaru were alive, the traitor Kazuki would have already been eliminated. Then, angrily, she asserts that the former leader is dead and needs him to accept that once and for all. Then, as the silver-haired guy turns to leave, she calls his name, Shigori. Furious, she asks how long he's going to keep hiding in the shadows of the former leader. Irritated, the guy questions what she means by that. He points out that that's what keeps her trapped, holding on to that device. She retorts that she's just passing the time, but her expression changes completely. Her eyes widen and she freezes at what she sees on the screen. He turns to ask if she is still thinking about that. Even after everything that happens, with a shocked look on his face, he grabs the device and asks himself, what the hell is going on in the live stream? A blast of golden energy strikes all the giants around with immense force. The creatures scream in pain as they are purified by the light of that mysterious ability. Our hero gains the lightning ability, and the system congratulates him on this achievement. He earns 2,000 points and is ready to move on to the next floor. The live stream is on fire, and people are sending questions about how he learned that lightning ability, but our hero thinks this situation is so bizarre. A screen appears explaining the ability while our boy faces the remaining monsters, thinking at least he survived. Then, with that, several donations of thousands of credits appear on the screen, and he thanks everyone for their support. His credits shoot up to over 20,000, and he promises to put on a show because of this money. The remaining giants roar in anger and prepare for the next massive attack. Determined to show his power, our hero invests 20,000 credits to upgrade his ability. The Wedge of Greed is now at level 3, granting better resistance to the power of lightning. The energy of the lightning concentrates in his hand as he prepares to attack alone on the battlefield. Our boy faces the horde of monsters charging at him. He grips his sword tightly, now imbued with lightning, while saying that now is the time to remember the true old days. And he executes his strike, slicing through several creatures with just one blow. The strike is so strong that the power extends to several creatures, several meters behind the others. But fortunately, that blow drained a good part of his stamina, and he even got tired. Even sweating behind the mask, he thinks he should have saved a bit more strength. After all, he still has to go back. As he observes those giant corpses all over the ground, he plants his sword in the ground and performs the judgment of evil. After that, back there, we see a crowd, several heroes arriving and watching that scene with terror written in their eyes. The blonde knight runs up to the benefactor, calling him an idiot for having faced so many monsters alone. This guy really went so far, while our boy just closes his eyes. A little further away, people stand in the room, extremely thoughtful, while the girl is very worried. Was it really worth going this far? Unfortunately, this tall guy doesn't know much about the hearts of women. That's why he gets extremely upset with this question. The young woman, with her hands on her head, realizes that the situation is incredibly tense for everyone there. Then, as if it were a shame, she enters into despair and wonders, what direction do I take now? Soon, she begins to float in her own mind, remembering that her message had sounded too cold. Damn it! She should have added more emojis to the text. Maybe that would have lightened it up, right? Her partner takes a jab, saying that the message looked more like an invitation to a business meeting, and the boss ended up thinking she wanted to become an entrepreneur. And she, already burning with anger, snaps, "Before being an entrepreneur, I'm an avid fan. There's no way to avoid that." Then she points at the boss and reminds, "Look, I already warned you about this. With lightning, now this ability belongs to the real Narukami group." The boss, hearing this, gives a sly smile as if to say, "This is definitely a case to keep an eye on, huh? For sure." Suddenly, the girl receives an alert and gets super excited about the news. She celebrates right there, flushed with happiness, thinking that our hero read her message. But soon, the excitement turns into despair when she realizes that he just viewed it and didn't reply at all. Poor thing. With this disappointment, the girl's soul practically leaves her body, and standing there, she leaves the others looking confused. The scene shifts to reveal several players standing still, figures on display, ready for an audience. At this moment, a streamer prepares to start his live broadcast, where he will analyze the players' battles. One key is the guy who, just with his sharp gaze, crushes rivals in competition. One key then drops the bomb. A new talent named Kurukao Amon is climbing the tower quickly, and he also mentions Kazuki Kiyoshi, who was part of that blue-eyed group, now representing the land. But he says, no matter what they say, the legend Narukami Subaru will always be the monster in the scene. Starting his live stream, he says he will talk about the hottest player in the world, Narukami Subaru. In front of, the outrage of the chat, he asks them not to insult the guy without looking properly. Then the live shows our hero fighting, and Rock is astonished, not understanding what's going on. Then, with a smile on his face, the streamer watches the incredible performance on the screen, thinking, "What concentration, my brother? What is this? A normal human can't control a new ability like that." Rock explains that he executed the skill control perfectly, putting everything into the sword and not wasting a single point. Wow. And with this absurd technique, he used the powers where they were really needed, without mistakes. So he concludes that this guy is going to be someone very strong and also very important. Then a viewer asks for a final summary, and Hank realizes he forgot to mention a crucial line. So he says that in Control, the guy can indeed be superior to the original Subaru at his peak. Upon hearing this, our protagonist simply faints in shock, not knowing how to react to this comparison. Then the system sends a notification. Phase C is ready and asks if he wants to suspend the approval. Even recovering from fatigue, our boy is mentally exhausted and considers taking a break from the test. He checks his device and is surprised by the number of viewers on the live, 742. He is left puzzled about when all of this happened. Then he apologizes, saying that the next live will be the day after tomorrow because he needs a rest, right? Thus, he ends the broadcast and a blue light portal appears for him to finally exit. Our boy takes a step out of the approval and returns to the white space between the floors. Alone there, he begins to explore the vast white landscape that surrounds him. He advances towards a stone portal, checking his device attentively. A new message appears from the entertainment sect, sent by someone named Hatsuka from management. Then, with sweat dripping down his face, our boy thinks it might just be spam trying to fool him. Without the mask, he is confused by the company's name, not understanding what is happening. Suddenly the scene changes again, now to a cafe on a bright, sunny day where he is probably headed. There, our hero is calmly sipping coffee while searching for something on his device and discovers Accept Entertainment, a streamer company, and reflects on how the world has changed, right? He realizes that this company is huge and among the best in the entertainment scene. On the device, he takes a look at the comments about Rock's live stream, where he praised the new Subaru, right? He soon finds out that Ranke is also part of that agency and is notorious for being a rather harsh commentator. Even so, our protagonist lets out a smile, thinking that the streamer really has a good eye for talent. Suddenly, a guy in stylish black boots walks into the cafe, catching everyone's attention. That guy is Kuroka. He stops in front of the place with a completely determined look. On the device, he sees a comment from Rock comparing him to the original Subaru. Furious, he shouts out loud that the dude just arrived on the second floor and doesn't deserve such a comparison. Anger takes over him, and he promises to rip the streamer's eyes out when he finds him. Then, with a heavy foot, he stomps the ground, pouring out all of his frustration. With the day already ruined, he enters the place trying to forget what just happened. With a twisted, sinister smile, he tries to disguise his anger but is failing. At that moment, he spots our hero and thinks, "Man, today is my unlucky day, huh? Running into so many weird people like this? Wow." Meanwhile, our hero tries to relax in the cafe, casually fiddling with his device. But out of nowhere, Isaac appears behind him with an intimidating posture, and completely serious. Also in this scenario, the bully deliberately bumps into the table and spills our protagonist's coffee on the floor. Then, with the hot drink spreading across the floor, our hero jumps back, screaming in pain from the burn he just received. He He glares at the bully with a look full of rage. The jerk apologizes, but with that sarcastic tone, you know how it is. "Look, you're the Subaru I know, right?" The guy has a smile on his face and comments that they've been bumping into each other quite a bit, saying that the second floor is pretty small for them. But Subaru doesn't care about him and ignores it, going back to fiddling with his device as if nothing happened. The bully, not losing his touch, asks if he wants compensation for the spilled coffee, knowing that Subaru is broke. Seeing that the guy doesn't react, the bully's eye glimmers with an intense red, filled with pure rage. Subaru decides it's time to get out of there, but the bully calls out to stop him in his tracks. Then, with a firm look, Subaru asks if the guy has a screw loose in his head. Furious, the bully grabs Subaru by the collar and unleashes a barrage of insults, calling our boy a bastard. He even threatens to finish him off like in the old days if he doesn't obey. But Subaru remains unfazed and interrupts the jerk casually, apologizing while firmly shaking the jerk's hand. "Look, I don't have time for this," he says, squeezing the jerk's hand with all his strength. Isaac is, shocked, wondering if Subaru has always been this strong. Subaru finally lets go and says he can consider the coffee payback settled. Before leaving in a huff, the jerk yells for Subaru not to go. He stays there, but the noise simply ignores it and leaves. The coffee shop door closes with a bell, leaving the bully alone with his fury. He lets out a frustrated sigh. All he wanted was to climb the tower in peace. He runs out of the coffee shop, shouting that they all won't stop provoking him. Outside, our boy checks his device and, out of nowhere, remembers something important. Then, with the device in hand, it seems he recalled the message he received earlier. The scene cuts. For a rubber duck floating in a bathtub full of foam, the girl from the agency relaxes in the tub and messages Subaru, inviting him to meet up later. The scene shifts to a dark dungeon, filled with the bodies of monsters that Subaru has already defeated with his demonic sword. He prepares for what comes next on his journey. Suddenly a screen appears, and the system alerts him that he is entering the boss room of the dungeon. His skill withstands the power of the weapon, and he reflects that he has already gotten used to his new body. Then, a flaming shadow rushes towards Subaru. The monster reveals itself as a giant salamander filled with rage, ready to attack. The system announces that the salamander boss has appeared, and the beast roars with fury in the arena. Subaru decides he needs to test his new lightning skill to see what he's capable of. He stares firmly at the monster and prepares to showcase his full potential, charging the power of lightning in his legs. Subaru increases his speed, and with extremely swift movements, he dodges the beast's attack. Thinking like lightning, with focused eyes, his former self materializes, merging with him, revealing an incredibly powerful new evolution. Wow, I talk extremely too much, right? But I like it. The salamander, frustrated, roars since its attack failed to hit the agile Subaru. Then, in anger, the creature launches a large fireball toward Subaru, who decides to use that demonic sword. He charges into the fireball, determined to deliver the final blow. His skill does not experience fatigue and increases, yet he does not give up, attacking with the support of his former self. Subaru delivers a final blow with all his power. The salamander is defeated, and there he clears the dungeon, leveling up and regaining stats. After that battle, Subaru exits the dungeon and crosses a dark, silent forest. He checks his fatigue and is surprised by the ability, but upon seeing how much it costs to improve, he complains about the 40,000 credits. Then, with a sigh, he wishes that someone would appear out of nowhere to offer him a good service, right? Suddenly, he notices the silhouette of a mysterious man standing in the woods. The stranger approaches and comments on the hunt, leaving his noise quite confusing. With a sinister look, the man stares at Subaru, and his eyes gleam in the darkness. He reveals his face and says it's a surprise because he has known him for a long time. Subaru stares back and calls him persistent for being right there in front of him. The stranger comments that he has thought a lot about it, but anger has made him impatient. There, they both stared at each other, ready for anything that might come next. Isaac then reaches Subaru and, with a smile, suggests that it's time to settle things right there. Subaru, with a serious look, thinks that this crazy guy is quite a challenge. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the bustling city, with the enormous tower in the center. On the streets, we see the famous streamer, MANHWA, walking with a very serious expression. Suddenly, a hand stops him, and his boss says he finally found him. At the location, sitting in a cafe, the head of the agency, John Intel, was waiting for his employee. Upon meeting, John greets the young man and asks if his transition has been booming lately. Rocket, the guy, responds that it has been average because the audience never changes, but the boss believes that's even better since what is built slowly doesn't collapse easily. Then, Rocket questions the reason for the sudden call, earning a compliment for his intuition. John gets straight to the point. He wants to know if Rocket is serious about the new Subaru Narukami, and the boy confirms, saying that the new one is more talented than the original. The eyes of our protagonist shine upon hearing about the potential of the newcomer. With this, the boss reveals that he is thinking of bringing our hero to the agency. He even likes the idea, but remembers that he is down there in terms of audience. The boss agrees, but says that his confidence has grown in this kid's talent after that conversation. So, he suggests a collaboration between the streamer and our hero to increase the visibility of the boy. Returning to the forest, Isaac grins sinisterly and asserts that now they are alone, just the two of them there. Subaru, for his part, agrees and stares at him with expression extremely serious, the bully mocks, saying he got excited and entered the dungeon. That's why he warned to stay back. Then, he approaches and asks if Subaru dreams of mastering lightning, as the streamer did. Irritated, Isaac curses at Subaru and tells him he should keep quiet in the depth of the grave. With red eyes, he raves about the incessant provocations that make everyone irritable. At that moment, the bully grabs Subaru by the collar and asks if he understands the magnitude of the trouble he's getting into. Our hero, with a sweat on his face, rethinks that he didn't expect an era full of imitators. He asks why Isaac sees him as such a great rival. The bully replies that it's because of the name, and Subaru questions why there is so much hatred. Isaac is shocked and speechless upon hearing the question. He screams about his father, but Subaru questions what that has to do with the conversation. The name King of Flames is mentioned, and we learn he is a hacker from the ninth floor of the tower. Subaru is surprised and asks if he really refers to the swordsman he knew. A memory from the past starts to emerge, something unbelievable that happened in the tower. In the flashback, we see Subaru Narukami defeat the hacker Reinhardt from Runner Continent. The scene shows that the battle ended with a single blow from the protagonist in less than 30 seconds. The hacker tried to rise, but King's flames trembled with weakness, and ultimately, the powerful swordsman fell to the ground, completely defeated by our hero. Then we return to the present. Isaac screams with all his fury that Subaru shouldn't speak his name so lightly. Our protagonist then questions if all this is because of the bully's father's nickname. Furious, Subaru asks if Isaac knows how much suffering he went through because of that. Irritated and determined, the bully tells the kid to shut up and engulfs himself in flames, but Subaru stares back seriously and says he won't be quiet under any circumstances. With an extremely resolute look, he faces the bully's flames without showing any fear. Isaac, surrounded by fire, "Get ready to attack Subaru with all your power." He then lets out a scream demanding that Subaru stop talking and hurry up to die already with his whole body on fire. Isaac yells that he hates Narukami Subaru and that the name makes him sick with rage. He claims that the guild leader was too arrogant, infecting his companions. Then, with a desperate look, the bully says that everyone deserves a tragic end. They met in the tower with an extremely wicked smile, imagining that everyone is rotting in hell. He then reveals that carrying that name was the end of Subaru's luck. He prepares and launches an explosive fireball towards Subaru, but our hero simply blows out some smoke, showing that the attack did nothing. Isaac, surprised, says that he apparently miscalculated the strength of his attack. Smiling, he suggests that maybe the next victim will be that masked streamer from the live stream. The bully is shocked, repeating masked, not fully understanding what's going on. He looks at the smoke and sees our hero's silhouette slowly emerging from the flames. Subaru then shows his mask and asks if that's what he was talking about. Isaac panics and screams desperately that this is impossible. He questions how Subaru can resist. With a fierce look, Subaru advances and says that a punk like him shouldn't talk like that. He then punches the bully in the stomach, shocking him with the size and force of the blow. Isaac feels the pain of the attack. His eyes shine with the intensity of the impact. This guy felt the pain. With that, Subaru throws him to the ground. Isaac screams in agony, blood running from his mouth. Subaru looks down and criticizes him for speaking ill of his comrades. Coughing, Isaac wonders why all of this is happening. He can't believe it. Then, our hero proposes a little quiz for the bully lying on the ground and challenges him. Is he the weak one, Subaru, or the enigmatic streamer Narukami Subaru? Or is he really the famous Narukami Subaru, the one with the blue eyes that everyone knows? The bully doesn't buy it and retorts that the guy is just trying to protect the streamer. Furious, he points out that Ryo's ability is not as impressive as they think. He questions whether Narukami Subaru really believes he can win a confrontation with that level of power. Isaac, in a fit of confidence, boasts that he is above even the real Narukami Subaru, and with that, charges at Narukami, unleashing blazing flames. But our hero is quick. With a precise strike, he easily cuts through the bully's attack. The bully stands there, dumbfounded, staring at his flame attack that was effortlessly undone. Narukami, with a look of disdain, says that this response was wrong and is astonished by the opponent's idiocy. Then, with that sword positioned at his throat, the bully, confused, asks what all of this means. A bead of sweat trickles down his face as he realizes the gravity of the situation he has gotten himself into. Narukami asks if he has any idea how much this has been used. Baru has already suffered because of words like his, and he adds that having a punk like him bad-mouthing his friends is not something easy to swallow. The bully begins to sweat profusely as he finally understands who is really standing standing right in front of him, face to face. Now completely bewildered, he acknowledges the truth and exclaims that Narukami is the authentic Blue Eyes. Narukami, without any hesitation, drives his demonic sword straight into the bully's chest. Then, with a serious expression, Narukami declares that the joke is over and that everything will change from now on. The guy's legs start to tremble and he collapses to the ground, completely defeated by the surprise blow. Narukami adjusts his mask and comments that this took more effort than it really deserved, and he tells him to consider it a thank you for lending his body as he continues on his journey. A woman in a cafe watches the whole situation and asks if he is just another fan of Narukami Subaru. Meanwhile, sitting in front of the device, Narukami appears to be doing a live broadcast, maintaining the mystery of his concealed face as a strategy. Suddenly, the girl from the agency appears, apologizing for the delay. Visibly nervous and flushed, she says it's time to meet him and introduces herself as the person who hired him. Then, with an excited smile, she introduces herself as Hatuka, the manager of the streamer's agency. Narukami greets her, introducing himself as Narukame Subaru, and she says she is honored. The girl wonders if they look alike in some way, and then starts to question if he is really the true Narukame who has returned or just an imposter. Narukame notices her strangeness and asks if something is wrong. In a flashback, she remembers her boss yelling about first impressions and realizes that she has failed. The boy watches, confused, as the girl bows embarrassedly before him. He asks if she was a fan of the old Narukami Subaru, and the girl responds with a shout that yes, she was. Narukami asserts that he is not the real one and asks her to calm down, but the girl says she is a fan of him too. Excited, she shares that she has been watching since the beginning and was surprised by his fights. Narukami starts to wonder if she really is his first viewer, as the memory is more of hers, and then he smiles, saying he was quite clueless and that it's amazing she has been following him until now. The girl, full of excitement, declares that it was destiny, which is why she begged to be his manager. Then, with a serious look, she says that the contract is already ready and that she will explain everything. She details that they will help create ads and clicks using the Narukami icon. Narukami wonders what he needs to do, and she replies to continue streaming as always. He is stunned, but she explains that it's because he is the first to master the lightning, and this company values him greatly. Narukami asks if all managers are like this, and about the terms of the contract. The girl gets all flustered and claims that the others are more professional, but he just laughs and says that's not it. She thinks that given his schedule, he must not be an ordinary player and that the situation must be intense. Narukami reflects on what his opponents will be like. More powerful, and you can't relax for a second. And she, worried, realizes that she needs to make a good impression and fears that he might refuse the contract. Narukami extends his hand and says he trusts her, leaving her in shock. With his hand outstretched, he asks her to take good care of his future. All emotional, she accepts his hand and says it should be her saying that. Narukami then starts his live broadcast, and the chat begins to get lively with the novelty. Looking at it, he notices that there are already over 700 viewers tuned into his live. He is surprised by how many people are watching and wonders if it's because of Ratuka's announcement. The girl then drops a notice about the skill distribution schedule for everyone. Without wasting time, Narukami decides to start, and the system initiates the 6th legendary phase. The scene then transports us to a rainy campsite in a dark forest. Inside some tents, wooden boxes are piled up in a corner. A group of knights gathers around a table to plot their next strategies. The blonde knight then asks his men where the benefactor who helped them is, but one of them doubts him and considers him risky. After all, trusting an unknown outsider is completely out of the ordinary. Another guy comments that, in reality, they might have been deceived and that the benefactor may not be the true leader of the giants. The blonde, already irritated, bursts at the guys, demanding that they stop doubting the savior. Suddenly, one of the knights shouts that the benefactor has finally woken up, and then our hero appears. The captain runs towards him, worried, but Subaru is already relaxed and takes a stroll. However, the other knights exchange suspicious glances, finding that mask quite strange. And then Subaru asks if they are in doubt or just lacking faith. Then, in a flashback, the manager talks about how to adjust the microphone, making everyone hear only what they need to. She finds this function super practical for awkward situations, but the knights think he is somewhat insolent. An old knight then extends his hand to thank. And he introduces himself as Dom, one of the leaders of the Subaru group, claiming he went to protect the village, but everyone ended up trampled. The old man, looking worried, confirms that the village is doomed because of that guy. Then Subaru asks if there's anyone more dangerous than the chief. The veteran replies, "Definitely, my friend." He explains that the real giants who once fought the gods were sealed away and have vanished. The old man tells that the leftover parts are scattered, and most of today's giants are just echoes of the past. But he gives the warning. The giant that appeared is different and is getting closer to that ancient legend. legend. Everyone in the live stream starts to freak out about this, saying that the level is on the 8th floor, which nobody has ever reached. Subaru, with a determined look, says there's no other option but to defeat him. Rondon thinks his confidence is pretty neat, but warns that it's an impossible ask since he has never seen the beast. Then, the blonde knight chimes in again and shouts the name of the benefactor, unleashing an ancient story about a lightning fragment that is hidden in the Millennium Mountain. He then, with a serious look, makes it clear that only someone special can find this legendary item, and in a wild move, the blonde believes that Subaru is the only one who can find this fragment. A memory surfaces showing the village on fire, with everyone running in desperation. Meanwhile, giants called Paides attack, mercilessly. Suddenly, a larger giant appears, calling all the other creatures his children, in a cry of despair. The knight is crushed by the hand of the advancing giant creature. Then, with a wicked look, the beast grabs the knight and vows to end him once and for all, crushing everyone. The giant finishes the poor guy's life without giving him a chance, and then shows his bloodied hands. He says he will send the knight along with the blood of the humans. In Subaru's eyes reflection, the horrific scene is revealed. From atop his horse, he watches this beast from a distance, while the live stream goes crazy. The horse, terrified by the creature's presence, makes everyone shudder. The blonde warns that the giants will take 3 days to arrive and that Subaru should get away if he can't find the lightning. But instead of fleeing, Subaru heads towards the Millennium Mountains, determined to gain the power to win. He refuses to accept the idea that someone in the tower could be stronger than him. Damn. He starts to realize that he just sent out an old catchphrase. Everyone in the live stream catches the reference. His noise takes a quick look at the device's missions and feels relieved that they haven't discovered his identity yet. Then, he grips the reins tightly and accelerates his horse toward the mountain. Finally, he arrives at the base of that monstrous mountain and dismounts. Our protagonist begins to reflect that the fragment of the lightning is hidden somewhere around here. He faces the immense stone wall he must climb to tackle the challenge. Subaru steps forward and touches the rock, preparing for what lies ahead. In a memory, the blonde had mentioned that the fragment is all a legend and no one knows what it is. Subaru asks how to obtain it, but the blonde only knows about the location and the legend. However, he mentioned that anyone who already used a lightning bolt simply finished off the giant. He is sure of it. Back in the present, the agency manager looks at the device and wonders what happened. Then, with a shout, she celebrates on the phone for the contract, with Subaru has been successfully finalized. The person on the other side cheers and says that Rizuka has finally become a real person. She is thrilled and asks if that is a compliment, but the boss replies that he found Rock, and he said he has something important to discuss soon and hangs up on her. So, with the job done, she throws herself onto the bed and decides to watch the stream, confident that she will see her new favorite streamer. Wow! The girl flushed all over her face. Now, she says that watching him live is one of her greatest pleasures as a fan. In the live stream, Subaru repeats that he cannot fight in that tower and that there is no way to overcome it. With wide eyes, he feels a shock upon hearing a phrase that is familiar to him. Then, with the smile of those cliches, she sits on the bed. Not believing in coincidence, it's as if life is mocking it. A tear rolls down her eye, for that was a phrase from over 20 years ago. Back on the mountain, a golden energy began to spring from the sky with insane strength. Then, the brilliant beings surround the Subaru, while the live stream audience is all confused, not understanding anything that is happening. Standing tall, he questions who is more resilient and prepares for the test that is coming. Then, the boy clenches his fist and declares that the fight will go on until the end, not budging an inch. With that determination, he punches the mountain with everything he has. And, well, an explosion of energy occurs. The earth shatters as if it were nothing, and the boy is there, amidst all that destruction, smiling, filled with golden bolts. He exclaims that he finally found what he was looking for. The entire ground is cracked. That noise confronts the havoc his powerful punch caused. The golden energy envelops him, and he concludes that this feeling is something that can't be felt in a live stream. The guy is feeling immense power surging from the lightning through his electric ability. Then, he looks ahead and spots an entrance in the mountain that seems to be the entrance to the final test. With firm steps, the boy advances toward the huge stone entrance. He stops in front of the gigantic door, and the live stream audience starts suggesting that he smash the thing to pieces. Without thinking twice, the boy extends his hand and touches the enormous stone door. Upon contact, the golden bolts emerge and he realizes it's an obvious hint. The system generates the bolts, and his ability can withstand the pressure. Preparing for the test in the wrong way and filling himself with power, the live stream erupts in euphoria at the idea of breaking down the door. The boy, filled with determination, states that if the power calls with such force, he will answer that call. Then, with an extremely powerful shout, he readies himself to punch, concentrating all his strength, responding to the mountain's call. The furious punch strikes the door squarely, and it simply shatters into 1,000 pieces, Then our brave hero advances through the newly opened passage, gazing at the golden glow on the other side. He sees the toppled stone door, revealing the path to the upcoming challenges in the tower. Then, with that destroyed door, the live goes wild. My brother, no one can believe it. That noise keeps paving its way. He stops and falls silent, staring intently at what is to come. Courage takes hold of him and, unafraid, he strides into the darkness. Subaru continues walking down the dark corridor towards his next challenge. The system alerts him that he has entered the lightning path and cannot exit until he clears the phase. Meanwhile, back at the camp, the torrential rain from Zaba and the knights prepare for a heat wave. Inside the tent, the warriors gather to discuss what they will do next after the battle. The oldest knight asks Peliuso if he truly believes that our hero will succeed. Then, with a confident smile, the blonde knight assures that our boy will handle it. The old man declares that he is putting too much trust in a stranger, but Peliuso insists that Subaru's strength has already been proven. The old warrior shouts that he doesn't care because everyone will die anyway. Then, with a serious look, Peliuso turns to him and says that he doesn't understand anything. At that moment, the young knight, trembling with fear, recalls the power of the giant that attacked the village and crouches down, pleading with the boy not to give up. Then, the young knight asks everyone to trust the young hero who is fighting for them for free. The young knight is still desperate and tells Prelios that it's easy to talk. The other knights look at him with very serious expressions when suddenly a strong tremor shakes the camp. A drink mug falls off the table. A knight bursts into the tent shouting that the enemy has arrived. Upon hearing the warning, all the warriors are in shock and prepare for the worst. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a large, cold, and silent ice cave. Inside it, our hero observes the area. Wondering where the hell he ended up, he walks through the snow and questions what he needs to do there. Everyone in the live stream starts commenting that there's nothing, but someone says the lightning is too fast. Subaru thinks about this and knows it makes sense because lightning is made of charges in the air. He realizes it's not a test he needs to look for with his eyes, remembering that the test is called the path where lightning walks. He feels a powerful lightning calling and understands that his strength is fading. With a shocked expression, without his mask, he captures the essence of what he needs to do. He crouches down and reaches out, knowing what this test probably is. Throwing a stone, he thinks about the invisible lightning in the air, the stone wrapped in lightning, and realizes that the deeper it goes, the stronger the reaction becomes. Then, the stone explodes with a discharge of golden energy. Golden lightning explodes through the cave, and everyone in the live stream is confused. What is happening? Then, with a smile on his face, he says he hit the nail on the head, but he has no choice but to move forward. Subaru starts running and thinks they are testing his endurance. With the mask broken, he finally understands that if he can't hold on, it's all over for him. Meanwhile, the people in the live chat start popping up with various missions and tips to encourage our hero to keep going strong. Then, with a firm and determined look, the kid thanks everyone for their support and rewards. The scene shifts, and we see a pot of stew cooking beside a cozy slope. There is the silver-haired boy, relaxing and playing with his device. But then he becomes serious, his gaze fixed on the screen, as if he is absorbing everything. Out of nowhere, a girl appears, and the guy jumps out of his chair, completely startled. She approaches and asks what he is doing there with that device. Look at that. The girl, with a mischievous smile, asks if he is hiding something spicy. The boy, with an indignant expression, denies it and says he is just tired. She lets out a playful smile and comments that his hair grows faster with certain things. She reveals that she stopped watching the live stream because of him, but couldn't resist coming back. The girl, puzzled by his reaction, asks if he doesn't want her to relax on the couch. The boy, now with a flushed face, shouts that she doesn't need to talk to him like that. She complains that her hair accessories are going to burst and asks him to relax in her way. Discreetly, the guy turns down the volume on the device so he won't be heard. The girl finds that quite strange since he never normally listens to anyone. Irritated, she stands up and pulls his arm to leave quickly, trying to convince her to stay a bit longer, saying she can wait to relax. The girl ends up leaving, heading up the stairs and leaving the boy alone. Alone, the guy sighs with relief. He was almost caught red-handed. He reflects that if she knew about the live stream, it would be a scandal, and he doesn't even want to imagine it. Then, with a serious look, he remembers that the noise would never forget to be in the live. He realizes that the personality and the way of speaking of the kid are the same as the old Subaru. On the screen, Subaru thanks for the donations, but the silver-haired guy thinks he's different from the original. Then, out of nowhere, a hand touches his shoulder, and the girl asks if he has stopped to think about what he's doing. Shocked, he turns around, and she asks if he thought he wouldn't notice anything. Then, with an enigmatic look, she warns him that she is light years ahead to deceive him. A screen appears and asks him to trace the path of lightning while a golden tear runs down his shocked face. Our protagonist prepares for the challenge ahead. Inside that ice cave, it's not just about taking a step. A golden energy begins to emanate from his feet, showcasing the intensity of that place. Soon, golden lightning strikes him with full force, but he stands firm, simply analyzing his progress. On the screen, he clenches his fist and feels the lightning energy pulsing strongly within him. That feeling is familiar because he has dealt with the power of lightning several times before. So, extremely serious, he prepares for the test, knowing that this is his specialty. After all, progress has risen to 3% and he knows the journey is long. Even so, our boy takes the next step with determination, already having a plan in mind. He then starts to run, while the live audience wonders why he is running faster to escape. He warns that it will be hard to read the chat, and people suspect that he is hurt. Then, with his hand extended, he thinks that it's already a guarantee to reach the goal in this test, but if possible, he will go beyond. The scene then cuts to that famous streamer, Rocky, who is watching everything with a serious expression. Also, Rocky is completely shocked by what he sees on the broadcast screen. The boss informs that Rocky, Narukami, and Subaru should collaborate on a project. So, with the mug in hand, he comments that he always gives the same advice to streamers. He explains that in the world of streaming, everyone does half the work. This counts as a complete assessment, saying that popularity is tied to family and the player's level of the era. The boss agrees and says that Subaru's live streams are more of a veteran vlog type than a normal chat. He then warns that Subaru may be a newbie, but Rocky just needs to stick to his usual style. He believes this is the real opportunity to ride the success of our new hero. John encourages Rocky to become a star alongside Subaru. Well, the guy still seems more determined. A golden light fills Rocky's eyes, showing his immense determination. He remembers his escape due to lack of confidence to climb the tower, but he wants to be greater than everyone. A reflection in the streamer's eyes changes, revealing a vast universe full of stars. Looking at the star-filled screen, he imagines himself as one of those great stars. Then, he reaches out, wondering if one day he can shine like them. Suddenly, he wakes from the daydream with a shout of surprise echoing throughout the place, but then, with a confused look, he wonders what he is doing in the middle of work. Rock, in a panic, questions whether Subaru is going crazy in the middle of the broadcast, and there is Subaru, feeling the pain of the lightning, but still holding firm against the heavy power of that approval. Our boy doesn't tire, begging again for his comrades not to abandon him like last time. Tears and sweat run down his face as he feels the sharp pain of loss, as if he is reliving that nightmare. He shouts, almost in desperation, asking them to stay with him, please. Then, like a flash of hope, an intense blue light tears through that darkness and pulls him back to reality. He falls, realizing that it was all just an illusion and that he was about to lose himself again. A system notification appears, warning that his progress is nearly complete and he feels his magical power growing. Grateful, he realizes that the approval has made him remember why he fights. Remembering the traitor, he fills with determination as he visualizes the future. Lightning begins to flow through the central meridian of each small channel in his body, centering on the heart. The progress is already at 20.7%. Perfect. The cleaning of the veins is underway. The system then notifies him that the thunder now resides in his body, magic level 1. All he has to do now is seize it and do what he needs to do. The two central meridians are just the anterior and posterior channels that run through the center of the body. The fine veins are the tiny vessels that connect throughout the human body, and he begins to walk as his body starts to connect each point, every thread, and every microvein. In other words, the inner power has reached every corner of his body. Uro and Subaru skipped the purification process of those fine veins, so he is taking a shortcut. Look at that beauty. His shock status has successfully increased. Well, normally he would do this using his own magic. Relying on lightning makes everything easier, but the pain is also very strong. The guy is bleeding a lot, but he still doesn't stop absorbing the power of the lightning. He keeps walking and keeps falling, but a bit far from there, she is in her room, sitting on the bed, watching the live stream, completely mesmerized. Watching that scene, she concludes that he is opening his thin veins, and look at that, he is doing it live. But what shocks this girl the most is that he is doing it while moving his whole body, and not just with his own magic or inner power, but with external strength. Wow, this girl knows that the pain must be unimaginable. Normally, people could hardly sit or stand, and most would almost certainly faint, but he doesn't. He can even walk, even if dying in a trial doesn't translate to reality. The pain feels so real because she clenches her teeth imagining such pain. Then, she blushes, realizing the courage of the boy. She wonders why this guy is going so far, but there on the battlefield, the system keeps notifying of the progress that is already at 50.3, and the collection of thin veins is still ongoing. He keeps stepping firmly, a lightning bolt emanating around his body, and the system keeps notifying that thunder dwells within his body, and he manages manages to accumulate more magic points. But now he starts to waver as he thinks this is all his fault. That blessing could have killed them. In a flashback, we see him watching the screen and saying he can't clean it, while another guy tells him not to worry because their team always wins in the end. He keeps trying to gather power and keeps trying to endure that pain. Now even his eyes are filling with blood, and he still says, if only I could, or if he had said or done something so careless, and if his overconfidence hadn't driven them, maybe everyone would be alive. That guy starts to cry from pain, anger, and regret, while thinking about why he had to die, while seeing the last image of his friend saying, this is serious, really. You guys are feeling too full of yourselves, aren't you? That's your problem. Then suddenly he begins to emit more power from lightning in his body. He starts to become even more focused, ignoring the pain. Just when he says that this is all his fault, but look, in the end, he falls to the ground. But even fallen, he still crawls toward the end. Then, the scene cuts, and we see a flashback. A beautiful green lawn, full of mountains. And there's our boy wondering what place this is. Suddenly, he sees some people around a campfire having a barbecue. He is shocked by that scene and asks himself, is that really you, Shui, Soya, Kei? Everyone is there, even Jiguri and Reina. He starts to walk quickly and then begins to run, while shouting, wondering if all this was just a dream. He runs toward everyone while he starts to cry and smile, trying to believe in that dream that still feels so real. Man, what a disgusting nightmare. He starts to tell everyone that he had a horrible dream, but then everyone turns their back on him and calls him Subaru. The guy begins to deform completely, while looking at him and saying that he was the real culprit for everyone's death. The other one, also beside him, all messed up, tells him that he didn't want to die, and he starts to stutter while calling out Chun, Rei, and Joya. The girl sitting in the back says that he said all those grand things and all those heroic deeds, so why was he not able to protect everyone? She says this while we see that there is a hole in her stomach. He is shocked by all of this and starts to call her name. Chino, that campfire, which once produced a warmth that calmed everyone's hearts, now transforms into an absolute fire. It starts to consume everything, and he begins to sweat a lot while trying to apologize. But then, that campfire starts to consume all their bodies, which were once full of life, turning to charcoal, but still standing, looking at him and screaming, while all he can do is watch everyone disappear. He begins to scream, asking everyone to wait for him. As all those ghosts disappear, he continues shouting for everyone to please wait, but nothing remains, only fire. He closes his eyes while pleading and pounds his hands on the ground. In that fire, it now transforms into a radiant white light. Then he comes to his senses again. He starts to rise from the ground, returning to the present as he faces all that pain. He thinks this is a hallucination that frequently occurs during the opening of the thin veins that veer off track, that now his progress is at 97.87. The thunder now reverberates through his body and has gained another point of magic as blood trickles from his eyes. He thinks whoever created this crazy test, thank you for reminding me. As all the thunders surround his body, he says he now remembers why he's still alive. All that lingers in his memory is the face of his great friend in the village. Things are heating up. The knights and villagers are already gathering for the battle that is coming, armed to the teeth. The villagers may seem desperate, but they are ready to fight for survival. And in an instant, a colossal giant appears in the center of the village, bringing terror in its wake. It smiles in a sinister way, staring at the warriors as if eager for the final massacre. A desperate knight shouts that the masked one has fled and left them in the worst situation, but the captain tries to calm the spirits, saying their benefactor will surely return to help. And then, in a fit of rage, the blonde man yells at his men, questioning if they can really call themselves true knights for trusting a stranger. The older knight touches his shoulder, calming him, and agrees with what he hears. He says that before pointing fingers, it is their duty to protect the village. With that, he draws his crystal sword, which shines with an intense blue light. The old warrior asserts that true knights are those who protect, and not the protected. In a war cry, he calls everyone to die as knights and prepare for battle. As one, all the warriors charge towards the giant without a second thought, fearless of death. Meanwhile, our hero's progress reaches 99%. He's almost there. Suddenly, a golden sphere of energy appears before him, pulsing with immense power. He doesn't know what it is, but from his progress, he realizes that this is his ultimate goal. The system alerts him that his fatigue has risen to 97, and he feels he's close, with the mask cracking. He withstands the pressure of the power of approval. At this moment, the hero knows he just needs to take one more step, and the system warns him of the dangers he faces, but he doesn't care about the warning. He takes the final step towards his goal. Outside, the battle has already begun. One of the knights firmly plants his feet on the ground, shouting his war cry. The old warrior attacks the giant with all his strength, sword in hand. The mage is ready to deliver the first blow against that creature. Then, with a precise spinning motion, he slices one of the monster's arms off. The impact causes a burst of blood, showcasing the knight's brutal strength. The giant bellows in pain, taken by surprise surprise by the old warrior's assault. In response, the creature tries to retaliate, but the blonde knight leaps in front to protect his partner. With all that courage and heroics, he yells to the old warrior, "Leave the rest to me." The captain stands firm, focusing on the next move, and with an insane leap, the blonde rushes forward with his sword raised, ready to finish it off. The giant roars in fury upon seeing the knight coming towards him, and the tension escalates. Then, with a firm gaze, the knight grips his sword tightly, ready to strike. At that moment, the Demon King strikes the giant with a massive cut of blue energy. The creature snarls in pain. Then, with the devastating impact of the knight's attack, the monster's head explodes, resulting in an agonizing scream of pain. The blonde lands safely and prepares for the next move, completely focused. Then, one of the knights, witnessing this, lets out a victory cry. "We managed to defeat that monster!" But the others do not stay quiet, cursing the fallen creature and attacking its body mercilessly. The blonde, with that adrenaline, Armel says they can relax, the worst is already over. But the old man, serious, observes that the real problem is not this monster, but the others that are coming. The knights begin to celebrate and praise their leaders, proud of the partial victory. The old man warns that now they need to clean up the remaining giants. Suddenly, a giant foot descends and crushes the ground where the other was. The leaders look up in panic and realize that the real danger has arrived. A young knight screams desperately, alerting that this monster is on another level. "My brother, are you crazy?" Meanwhile, the progress of our oracle reaches 99%. He approaches with energy in hand and declares that he will make the traitor apologize. The system then marks 100% progress. Our hero swears, with a look full of hatred, that he will take Kaniso's head as a trophy. With that, he turns, walking away from the spot, surrounded by golden lightning around him. The energy simply exploded everything around, and our boy stood in a pure golden light amidst that storm, his new armor shining brighter than anything. He exclaimed, "I finally got the power I always wanted." Then, with his face all smeared in blood, he wonders if he has finally reached the end of that madness. His eye began to shine with an intensely bright golden light, showing that he now had monstrous strength. The system gave that reminder. His meridians were open, and his powers and status had gotten a significant boost. But he complained that if he took one more hit, he would have to endure the pain of the century. With his hand bleeding, he at least requested a warning before he collapsed to the ground. With that, our protagonist passed out while the system announced that he had surpassed the legendary phase. Back at the agency's office, boss John Kelly was watching the broadcast with a face like someone who had eaten a lemon. Seeing our hero unconscious, he commented that it was hard to say where the recklessness of a player ended. That was no longer welcome. Slapping the table, he declared that the kid was not cut out to be a real streamer. Suddenly, his phone started ringing, and it was the famous streamer Wankai, all excited. John answered the streamer, asking eagerly if he had also seen the insane scene that went down. He cut in and said our hero was an up-and-coming star, but the boss asked him to slow down and explain better. The streamer said the kid was good as a player and streamer, but John thought he was quite rough. With a smile on his face, Hank shot back that this is exactly what counts, because Narukami, the original man, has always been a real player. He explained that people go crazy to see a real player in action. Meanwhile, the boss started connecting the dots and, with a very serious look, realized he was witnessing the rise of the new Narukami in real time. Then, we returned to the broadcast. Our hero's hand moved in the snow, proving he was still alive. Everyone in the live stream went wild, and our kid finally started to get up from the ground, looking pumped. His eyes shone with that golden light, extremely powerful, and then he grabbed his tablet to check the system and complained about fatigue, because it was at its limit. Then, with the tablet in hand, our hero saw that fatigue was at 81, but his status had improved. In this moment, several missions were completed, and he received a shower of credits as a reward for his effort, with over 20,000 credits. Our kid was happy with the cash, but realized he still didn't have the 40,000 necessary to increase his greed skill. With the golden orb in hand, he declared that this thing would be the key to defeating the giant. A screen appeared and revealed that the item was the Thunder Spear, a legendary one-use weapon. Up in the tower, our kid reflected on how rare that item was, agreeing with the stream that it didn't really look like a spear. He then opened his inventory to take a look at the item he had just won. Our hero explained that the deal is with high-rank items and that they change shape, and everyone in the Liv thought he was a professional. Meanwhile, in the village, one of the knights screamed desperately at the sight of the terror that was emerging before them. The captain and his partner faced a giant and dark monster that had appeared to attack. That creature revealed itself to be a giant with white hair and a very sinister gaze. Then, in the atmosphere of darkness, The monster stared at the knights, preparing for the massacre in that little village. A system with a dramatic touch, named the Giant as King Giant Greg, the seed that swallowed the very lightning. The captain, witnessing the scene, shouted furiously as the knight ran towards the giant, almost surrendering. The knight, in despair, cried out and said that his companions knew nothing about that monster. Seeing the enormity of the creature's foot, he called it God and assured that he was not like the other foolish humans of the village. With that, the warrior knelt and begged for the mercy of the giant, looking down. But the furious creature questioned whether he truly thought he was a god like the others. Then, with an enraged look, the monster commanded the knight to stop comparing the gods to the filthy ones he despised so much. At that moment, an older knight grabbed this soulless one and shouted for him to get up and fight with honor. Then he turned to Pelud and ordered him to flee with the villagers as quickly as possible. With a firm look, the old warrior prepared to sacrifice himself for the safety of all. But the captain, in panic, shouted his companion's name, desperate about the situation. Soon after, a powerful attack descended from the heavens, and the knights began to be decimated in the small village. Thrown back, the blonde realized that there was no path to victory for his people. But with a serious look, he knew that the only option left was to find an escape route. But to his misfortune, the escape route was blocked by more giants, and the population was in danger. Then, with an extremely desperate face, the blonde knight gritted his teeth, connected to what was happening. He then shouted at the monster that he knew it had killed his son, King Giant. Realizing, he faced the little knight with interest. The creature asked who had been the unfortunate one to dare touch his son. With sword in hand, the captain prepared to point in the direction of our hero. He aimed his weapon at the mountain and said that the assassin had gone there. The knight claims that the boy went to seek the power to end all the giants at once. Inside the blonde's mind, a sudden fervor arose. Wishing that the monster would change direction and head for the mountain, the giant king hesitated. It seemed he was about to fall for the knight's words, but at the same time he refused to believe it, asserting that he could feel the lie in those words. This assassin is not here, or did you choose just any place? The monster questioned. Before the knight could respond, a golden light erupted from the mountain, catching everyone's attention. The blonde knight, stunned by the explosion of power, gazed at the distant scene. There, in the midst of the golden light, the silhouette of our protagonist hero emerged, almost a god. Peliuso, recognizing the mythical figure, murmured the name of the mayor who had come to save them. In an announcement from the system, the 7th phase was activated. This Subaru observed the order of the giants. Our boy reflected that something even stronger was about to appear. This battle might go beyond a second-floor test, but for now he calmed himself, assuring that there was no reason for panic. The young man concluded that, in fact, he didn't need to think too much. All he needed was to hit the monster just once. Although aware that his current power was not enough to win, he knew he needed to stop the monster before it was too late. Then, with determination, he raised his orb and the system alerted that the lightning spear was in preparation phase. Then a golden energy descended from the heavens and the system informed that the weapon was taking shape. The energy, now in a frantic rotation, created vows of inconceivable power. At that moment, the Golden Demon King materialized in the heights, ready to unleash a devastating attack. Subaru extended his hand toward the growing power, and the initialization rate jumped to 10%. The energy envelops his body and the fatigue rises to 84. As a result of the weapon's power, the golden energy progressively begins to take the shape of a spear. Then, with the weapon in hand, he advances, and the initialization rate increases to 33%. His skill tries to resist the spear's power, but the pressure is too much. Aware of his lack of experience, he realizes that he is still not ready to wield such a legendary item. His fatigue climbs to 88, but he insists that he needs to endure that body. The viewers in the live stream start mocking his situation, but the noise remains focused. He asks if the giant noticed the glow, and the live stream scoffs, claiming even a grandma could see it. Subaru admits it's impossible not to notice the light spectacle, and the initialization progresses. Finally, the giant king spots the light on the mountain and understands the situation. Then, with a heavy step, he declares that he has found who he was looking for, the true murderer of his son. With a furious gaze, the creature focuses on its target, accusing Subaru of being responsible. In a leap, he charges toward our hero, while the captain screams indignantly that this fight was supposed to be with him. The blonde knight watches the giant monster charge, a serious expression on his face. Worried, he feels anguish realizing the monster could wreak havoc in the village. Before the mountain, the giant king calls out to his son with a voice heavy with sorrow. Then, with a sad look, he laments the pain his son must have felt and, with renewed determination, vows to avenge that pain. Delivering a powerful stomp, he releases a wave of devastating energy. Advancing with fury, the creature marches with the intention of taking revenge. Then, with eyes reddened by hate, the giant screams that he will return all the pain. His fist prepares for a brutal attack against Subaru. The boy positions his spear and the initialization reaches 88%. At that moment, the mountain is struck by the giant's angry fist. Subaru thinks the odds are 50%. It's all or nothing, and that's where the excitement intensifies. Out of nowhere, a human voice echoes in your mind, a memory, a master who taught you to focus on the target. Never take your eyes off what is about to happen, said that instructor, as he imparted the teachings of the correct stance. The master advised to set aside the thought of how to throw. Finally, the preparation comes to an end, and the activation of the spear is at 100%. The entire scraped face of our brave hero Narukami Subaru lifts the spear with all that brilliant determination in his eyes. He remembers that this is his only chance to resolve everything at once. With the spear firmly in hand, Subaru shouts that he intends to end the battle with a single strike, showing that he is not joking. Then, with a fixed and intense gaze, he prepares for the final attack, using all his strength as well as what he can muster. He shouts, spins the spear, and hurls it towards the monster as if it were a deadly move. Immediately after the throw, he falls to the ground, all battered and fatigued. Then, with a triumphant look, the spear hits the giant king square in the head, leaving him completely unconscious from the impact. Around him, an explosion of golden energy erupts. The creature feels the pain of the blow, and then, an explosion of light consumes the monster, eliminating it once and for all. The giant's eye watches the explosion, and in one last gasp of pain, his body disassembles. Tries to utter some word, but it is too late. After that intense battle, Subaru even laughs. Back on the ground, breathing a sigh of relief and exhaustion, he observes the scene he has just created as the live audience erupts in celebration, recognizing that he truly defeated the monster. The system soon informs him that he has defeated the monster, allowing him to pass the 7th stage of the Thunder Challenge. Then, with this victory, he levels up and accumulates various status points in addition to receiving an item called the Heart of Lightning. Subaru examines the item, curious, and wonders, what is this so-called Heart of the Lightning that suddenly received the crystal? In his hands, it shines with an intense light and a piercing pain hits him, causing a tear to roll down his face. Confused, he wonders why you haven't liked it yet. My brother, we're almost at the end of the video. Hit that like button and comment down below if you're enjoying it. Confused, he questions what is really happening, as his body seems to have been transported to another place. Suddenly, he finds himself in a strange location and wonders where he ended up. At that exact moment, a huge and enigmatic shadow looms behind him, leaving him in shock. He tries to speak, but the words simply won't come out, and he questions what is happening. Realizing that his body was completely paralyzed, he grows increasingly terrified. At this point, the system begins to alert him insistently about the mysterious presence watching him. The shadow continues to stare at him, and Subaru feels small and vulnerable in front of it. Then, with his face covered in sweat, he wonders if that creature is trying to communicate. He grips the Heart of the Lightning in his hands. An explosive golden light starts to shine, a flash so bright it blinds him, emerging and taking him back to the battlefield. Subaru lands back on top of the mountain, the same place where the fight took place. A new scenario screen appears, and the chat explodes with comments informing that he passed out again during the live. Sitting on the ground, he wonders if all of that was just one of the game's craziness. Getting up, he apologizes to the live, stating that he fainted for a while. Then, with the device in hand, he mentions that he needs to claim his earned credits. Afterward, Subaru completes several missions, and his credits shoot up to over 40,000. He starts to feel tired and bids farewell to the live, ending the transmission. Later, at that packaging facility, his manager congratulates him on his excellent performance in the exam, but he asks if the live was good. The girl, smiling, says it was simply perfect. So, with a smile on her face, the manager states that she didn't even notice that the live stream peaked at 3,000 viewers. Our boy apologizes, saying he was too focused on the exam, which surprises the girl. She notes that for a rookie, that was sensational and that the timing of the live stream's end was perfect. Subaru realizes that the suspense he created that left everyone intrigued was intentional, and she asks if it was on purpose. He clarifies his plan to check the rewards in the next live stream to appear more natural, right? Then, with a smile, the girl realizes that he gets the hint, and that the boss's concern was unnecessary. She says she has a present for our hero, making this guy quite curious. Then, the girl leans in and says it's a special gift that he definitely can't refuse. With a mischievous smile, she asserts that the gift is indeed special, creating a sense of mystery in the air. With a playful smirk, Hatsuga gets straight to the point with our boy. Dude, take a good look at that stream over there, Rock Lee. Then, our boy Subaru grabs a device and starts hunting for that guy. They stop on a live stream of a blonde guy who promises a cool topic today. The streamer, who calls himself Rock Rock Lee claims that he might actually be the real Narukami and not a 2.0 version. While Subanokami was struggling with a tough test, the streamer was also caught up in a crazy situation. Radisuga, seeing all this, seems a bit uninterested and looks away. Soon after, the streamer assures that he will summarize everything because dragging things out isn't his style. He says that Subonokam is, in fact, the Narukam, and our hero is shaken. With a confident expression, the blonde concludes that there's nothing more to add. And then Subaru wonders if Hatsuga is on the same wavelength as the streamer. He turns to her and casually asks something more intimate. Atsuka then flushes and comments that it's a bit strange for the manager to ask that kind of question, right? No. She composes herself and gets straight to the point, asking about the real reason he's doing the live stream. She adds that it's not just for the money, right? Subaru crosses his arms, pondering her question. He finds her and stares at her with a nervous smile. Then he bluntly states that it's all about the money. That's what matters to him. With that honesty, Hatsuga blushes deeply and is left speechless. Trying to act cool, she mentions that money is important and apologizes for the direct question, but he reassures her that it's all good. Soon, the girl shifts to a different topic, full of enthusiasm, and talks about gifts. She reveals that the streamer Rankie has been in the agency for 6 years and is a hit with the fans. Excited, Hatsuga throws some papers on the table and says they will split the earnings from the live stream. Subaru asks who the split is with, and she responds that it's with him, as it's all based on him. He's shocked and questions if she's serious, while she thinks everything is getting better with him at the agency. All shy, Ratsuga confirms that this is just a surprise bonus and, still a bit awkward, she suggests that he collaborate with the streamer. Later in his room, climbing onto the bed and looking thoughtful, he laments that he shouldn't have worn the mask. The boy reflects on having insisted so much that everything revolves around money. Then, looking in the mirror, he thinks that the closer he gets to someone, the harder it becomes to hide things. Putting that aside, he spends 40,000 credits to upgrade his skill, Greed's Wedge, which moves up to level 4 and will need 80,000 to level up again, but he only has 120 credits and realizes that money is the most important thing. Thankfully, the collaboration with Rock, happening the day after tomorrow, is promising a good return. Suddenly, a crystal flower appears in his hand as he reflects on what comes next. He keeps asking himself if his name will be exposed before he's ready for it. In her room, Ratsuga is lying down, thinking about everything that happened. Then with her face burning, she hugs the pillow, tightly, feeling anxious. Looking back, she remembers the question she asked about money and feels quite embarrassed, giving a punch to the pillow. She screams yes, confirming her feelings for him. She is aware that behind that mask lies a heavy secret he harbors. Then she screams that she will ask more, even though she is curious to know. In the end, she thinks that since she met Subaru Kami, everything in her life has improved. So, with a hit on the pillow, Radazuga screams that she feels the same for him, filled with emotion. Or else, with an impact, feathers fly around the room as she vents her feelings alone. She finds herself thinking about Narukami Subaru, the crazy guy with a secret no one knows, and how he's kind of cool, right? And at the same time, we are transported to the 7th floor, a dark and gothic place called Nox Bella. Through the window of one of the buildings, we see lights flashing, indicating someone is awake inside. A muscular guy is sweating, training, while he connects to the live stream. The streamer named Rockstar says there's no need for much fuss, and just one sentence is enough. The buff. Guy grips the iron bar tightly, showing that anger. Clearly, he is pissed off at that blonde streamer on the screen. He wonders who that guy is and whether he should act cool or formal. Another guy appears and explains that the blonde is a comedy streamer with 8,000 viewers. The buff guy is the hand of the Blue Zone and comments that he tried to be a streamer too. His partner suggests forgetting the rank and focusing on Subaru, but the hand calls Subaru an imposter. On the screen, the hand encounters the lightning power of our protagonist and is left with his mouth agape. Finally, he notices the words of Sakucho Rei, the knight with blue eyes. My partner is astonished because the hand is the type that remembers every detail he mentions. The hand says they admired the blue eyes because they were at the top of everything. Furthermore, the guy begins to find everything very suspicious, the way they disappeared. There's a pause, and we return to the streamer Rock Lee, who is talking about our hero Narukami. It's true that he usually doesn't stay calm. He gets really mad about it. He can't understand why they are throwing his pride in the trash. Just for views, in a moment of desperation, he turns off the TV with the remote in hand as if that would solve anything. His indignant hand asks why he showed that garbage, and the kid retorts that he didn't want to do that. He explains that the guildmaster ordered him to watch that broadcast. His partner, with a mysterious look, tells him that the thunder is the symbol of blue eyes and that it has become the Blue Zone. He heard somewhere that the streamer does anything for money. Soon, Guy pulls a large cloth off a cart and reveals what's underneath. My buddy shows several bars of gold and says that the money is ready to bring it in. The guy is left speechless, unable to believe what is before before him. This guy, he starts to sweat cold, not knowing if that streamer is really a complete maniac for money. Suddenly, the system announces that the second floor exam is happening and that the village has been destroyed. Then, a blonde knight shouts to gather the injured and take care of the most critical cases first. Determined, he sets off to organize everything like a true operations chief. Then, out of nowhere, he notices something and his face lights up with a relieved smile. He rushes over to our protagonist and calls him benefactor, informing him that he has woke up. Subanokame replies that he's still dazed, and the knight, laughing, says that it's normal since everything happened yesterday. The knight, all excited, agrees and says he can ask whatever he wants. Then, with a smile on his lips, Bonokame observes the young man and thinks that Peleos is a good kid. Later, in his room, he sits on the bed reflecting on all of this. He decides to check the reward for the exam completed, and guess what? He received an item called Heart of Thunder, which increases attack and defense. Subanokame is left with his mouth agape, asking if that was really real, and finally, a smile appears on his face, because he realizes that those attributes are perfect for a thunder user. So, with a victorious smile, he thinks that item is really awesome. Out of nowhere, someone knocks on the door, and Subanokame tells the person to come in. It was Peleus who brought a basket full of fruits as a gift. Subanokame is completely confused by the situation, and the spectators ask what's going on. The knight asks if he slept well, and the spectators start making jokes about the boy's visit. Soon they sit at a table to have a pleasant chat. Our boy then mentions that the legend was true, which leaves Peleus in shock. My boy agrees, as he also saw the light and celebrates that Subaru saved the entire village. Subanokame then takes an item from his pocket and says that it fell from the body of the giant. He shows the Heart of Thunder, and Peleus is left speechless. This guy can't believe what he's seeing. Then our hero asks if the knight knows what that mysterious item is, but Peleus's look says it all. This guy has no idea what it is. My brother, Subanokame, is left with a question in his mind, and the spectators comment that he knows everything. Peleus apologizes and mentions that he only knows old legends and doesn't even know if they are true. He also reveals that he only knows 2 legends. Our hero is astonished. Peleus begins to tell the first legend, saying that the thunder was used to take down a giant. He also concludes that our protagonist, Narukami Subaru, was the one who did it. He prepares to tell the second legend. The other story, My Brother, Sit Tight Because Here Comes the Story, talks about gods and giants, an insane battle for control of thunder. Subanokame is left speechless by that revelation, and the knight begins to confirm the ancient battle that really took place. He explains that this legend is a legend within another, where the giants lost the war. Subanokame deduces that the gem was made on purpose. Peleus says that not even the legends revealed who created it, but because it is pretty clear, it was to give humans the chance to wield the power of thunder, and the reason for that, well, the gods and the giants, because these creatures are so strong that normal humans cannot face them, right? The silhouettes show that humans receive this strength to fight and win. That's why the Heart of Thunder was made, to give an opportunity to them in battle, and then the system alerts that he saw all the points and completed the thunder test. Well, out of nowhere, our hero begins to disappear in front of the knight. It's all good. He stands there totally baffled, not understanding what was happening with his beautiful benefactor. The scene then shifts to the 3rd floor, in a city called Hortonal, in a golden pillar of light. Narukami Subaru appears in the middle of the square, and finally, he reaches his destination. The spectators are hype, celebrating his arrival. Nearby, some guys start complaining about another Narukami cosplay, asking when this trend will pass. Then, with a serious look, our protagonist realizes that something important is about to happen. Suddenly, a girl approaches a boy and asks for permission to talk to him. It was Reina-san, who at the time seemed like a super inaccessible person. With a somewhat awkward smile, the girl said she had lost sight of her group of friends. The Reina, who was the most inaccessible figure one could imagine, then asked the boy if he had seen a particular guy, but he was completely lost, not understanding anything. After thinking for a moment, he described the man as someone who was a head taller than Reina herself, and he confirmed that he had seen the guy. Reina's excitement was instant. She thanked him as if she had hit the lottery and ran off in the direction he pointed to find her missing friend. But then, out of nowhere, the girl stopped, running, and the boy was all confused, thinking something weird had happened. She started turning this way and that, pointing in despair, having no idea where to go. The guy, in a spirit of camaraderie, offered to go with her, since he was heading to the same place. Reina was thrilled with the proposal and fired off a question to see if he was really interested. He confirmed, but soon regretted it, thinking he should have just shown her the way and taken off. She introduced herself as Kilkarina and he as Narukami. The memory passed like a movie. Narukami, Subaru found himself wondering if all those guys were still around. Back in the present, a viewer offered him a gift and asked how he was doing. With a look of nostalgia, he recalled every bit of his journey. He replied that it felt like he had lost something precious. something that would never return. Then he picked up his device and prepared to face the live broadcast. He announced that the next live session would be with the rock star. The scene then cut to an extremely luxurious cafe filled with people chatting. Subaru arrived and immediately apologized for the delay in the meeting. An older man came in and informed him that Tsukasa was on the way. The man introduced himself as John Kali from Sultana Entertainment, and our hero quickly thought he was the annoying boss. Subaru greeted the man, mentioning that he had heard a lot about him from the manager. John said he wanted to meet him because he was the second player that Atsuka praised. Very curious, Subaru asked who the first was, and the man said he didn't even need to name names. The first was none other than Subaru Narukami, who had blue eyes. This made our protagonist very nervous. John commented that he was surprised, finding it strange for her to be interested in someone with the same name. Then, with a nervous smile, Subaru thought of an unexpected question. He expressed his curiosity about whether the man had any interest in the guild called Blue Eyes. The blue eyes of Narukami shone with the inquiry, eagerly awaiting a response. But John, with a big smile on his face, noticed the excitement and said he was completely uninterested. He revealed that it was one of the reasons he wanted to meet this person. Meanwhile, Subaru looked at his device and saw the giant prize from a tournament. He was now shocked and wondered if that was really true, going into a state of total shock. A golden energy began to rise from his fist as he tightened it with all his strength. Well, that device now indicated that Subaru Narukami had ended the live broadcast. Inside an elevator, a young man looked at his device and commented that the broadcast had already finished. He left and wondered if things had also ended on the other side. As he walked on the snow-covered ground, each of her steps echoed through the forest. She ventured alone through a frozen landscape. Upon reaching her destination, she saw a man with silvery hair and asked if everything was over. He turned and confirmed that everything had already ended long ago. She questioned him about what he was holding and what he was doing. He replied that he was merely reflecting and began to ponder whether he should eliminate the Ice Warriors or let them go. The girl said she was sure they should be eliminated, for she knew who sent them. But the young man said he wasn't sure, which is why he was there. He began to argue that if they were truly who sent them, they wouldn't have dispatched such weak warriors. She disagreed, stating that letting them go was a problem since they might reveal their location. Suddenly, several frozen blades erupted from the ground, ready to attack. The girl then lunged to evade the rain of blades and resolve the situation. With a simple gesture of her hand, she began to control a myriad of ice daggers. The blades started to swirl around her with intense blue energy. Seeing this scene unfold, the man with silvery hair shouted in desperation for her to stop, but by then it was too late. The icy rain surged forward with all its force, striking the warriors and shattering them. One of the warriors had its upper body smashed by the impact. Thus, one by one, all the warriors were completely destroyed by her attack. Then, with the battlefield cleared, he shouted furiously, asking what she was doing. She then explained that if they let the warriors get away, they would find out that they were still alive. The girl said he needed to be more ruthless, and he apologized for his hesitation. The young man with silvery hair then picked up his device, appearing thoughtful, began to show something on his screen, and asked her to take a look because it was important. Then, looking at the screen, she was shocked. While screaming, filled with rage at the situation, with her eyes red from so much anger, she began to call everyone a bastard. So the guy asked the girl if that's bothering her. By her face, it's obvious it is, right? The answer was clear. On the device's screen, an image appears that sends a chill down the spine, a pair of shoes belonging to an old companion. The kid quickly says that it was a trap to pull them out. With fire in her eyes, the girl realizes that they might be aware that she's still around and insists that they can't just stand still. They need to retrieve that item quickly. He agrees but mentions that these stealth missions are a bit pointless, even though she's just great at it. She finishes up and complains that he talks too much, but the truth is, she's already decided to act one way or another. Then, in a twist, it happens. He grabs her arm and tells her to hang on for a moment. Then, with a serious expression, he clarifies that he's not saying to attack without a plan. The idea is to steal the prize as soon as there's a tournament winner, something he already had in mind. Back at the Shiur cafe, he shows her the shoes, and it's a relic from a member of the Blue Eyes. Then, he wonders if our protagonist is interested in that item. The look on his face is piercing. My friend, this guy is angry, and confirms that, yes, right? He's fervently interested in getting that prize. John Tali, with a sparkle in his eyes, is happy. Little did he know that Subaru got excited about the bait, so he suggests a project where Subaru would become a relic hunter for the Blue Eyes. Subaru's rage is so intense that his eyes start to shine with this absurd idea. He reflects that they're using the feeling of touching as a circus attraction. John, noticing his anger, asks if everything's okay. Then, Subaru composes himself and firmly states that he will take on that mission. The guy gives an extremely satisfied smile while John cheers and says, "That's great." Subaru then stands up to say goodbye, informing that he's going to bail out of there, and John reinforces that he'll always be rooting for him. But as Subaru marches out, his fury remains latent. He swears he won't let anyone, not a chance, take that prize. Later, in his room, Subaru throws himself onto the bed. Relaxing and thinking about what the tournament will be like, he wonders what kind of insane event is going to take place in this competition. The crazy guy thinks it would be fine if it were a singles match, although he knows he can't afford to be picky. Suddenly, he is called by Hatsuka, and the shock makes him jump out of bed to answer. Sitting down, he focuses on the door and the mask sitting next to him, his gaze completely attentive. He invites her to come in, but she quickly questions the mask in the room. Nervous, Hatsuka hesitates and after a moment, decides to fully enter the room. They both sit in a very tense atmosphere. The girl's nervousness is palpable as she observes the simplicity of his room. Subaru reflects that, as he imagined, her magical power is absurd, and she's not just a manager. The silence is heavy until Hatsuka asks if there is something wrong with her face. She then explains that she came to get some materials for the competition. Just look at her, with that awkward little smile, handing over the papers and saying that the competition will take place in Escabrele. She details that it is a simple format where players fight for the prize. Subaru gathers that it will be an individual competition, which Hatsuka confirms, saying that the stage will be a virtual testing field with no limit on the number of players, and she intends to send data from past matches. When he looks at the screen, he realizes that the data is all about him and his past. Subaru thanks her for the work, and she replies that this is what she does. Suddenly, Hatsuka gets serious, asking if he is aware of anything from the director. He quickly thinks of the Blue Zone, and soon understands that the guild leader is doing everything to recruit him. Subaru, with clenched fists, questions the Blue Zone's interest in him. Hatsuka reveals that she received a message alerting her that they wanted to meet him. She thinks they will want to negotiate, but Subaru confidently tells her not to ignore all of this. With his direct response, Hatsuka looks shocked, left speechless in front of the request. Then, finally, Subaru delivers the message. He has no intention of joining the Blue Zone or any guild. The guy is tough, my brother. Typical of the protagonist, right? No, with Subaru's direct response to Atsuka, she gets pumped up, throwing a punch in the air out of excitement. She revealed that she was unsure whether to tell or not, but now she was very happy to have opened up. So with an extremely charming smile, that girl starts to say goodbye, wishing him to take the time to relax until the collaboration begins. Watching her leave, our boy thought that she celebrates as if luck were only hers. After taking off his mask, he was surprised by her passion for work. Outside, Hatsuka continued to celebrate this victory, and he realized that this girl is not just anyone. The mermaid then moves to a huge battle arena, which was currently completely deserted. Right in the center of this arena, there was a young John Tyler chatting with the blonde streamer known as Rockstar. John explains that the day's plan is a talent test between the old and the new. Rock liked the proposed scheme, but already gave a warning. Losing is going to be a tough blow for him. Then, with a gaze of someone unafraid, the musician accepts, because, let's face it, this guy still needs to win everyone over. With arrogance at its peak, he asked if he had ever lost a fight. The director thought he was quite full of himself, and Rock just smiled at that assessment. Suddenly, Hatsuka appears calling for the director and cuts their conversation short. Subaru and Kami approach, and the man praises the duo's work, but Rockstar, with a look of someone concocting a strategy, thinks this is his chance to shine. Meanwhile, Subaru and Kami are impressed with the space, and the streamer gets closer to Subaru with a smile. This guy formally introduces himself as the streamer Rock. Subaru introduces himself back, and the guy shares an idea like an eager superfan. Then Tyler interrupts, warning that they need to hold off until they start the live stream. Rock starts broadcasting and sends a shout out to the viewers. The viewership skyrockets to 12,000, and the streamer is shocked by that vibe. He then reveals that the person everyone has been waiting for has finally arrived at the event. Subaru steps forward, ready to introduce himself on stage. Rock makes the announcement, and everyone in the chat goes wild with the presence of our hero. Well, the streamer throws out the question if he has any secrets, since even the manager hasn't seen his face. Subaru, straightforward, states that he has no secrets, right? And he actually considers himself quite handsome too. But then, in good humor, he throws out that he won't let him win, but not in the fight. He's talking about looks. Rock thinks Subaru is a chill guy and laments not having friends or a girlfriend. Behind the scenes, Hatsuga looks radiant, and John observes with a serious look. Haki interrupts the antics and announces that they are ready for the main event. Soon, the huge screen lights up announcing the start of the test. Suddenly, bright lights begin to flash intensely across the arena, and a legion of robots appears, ready for the challenge ahead. He then explains the reasons justifying the choice of this unexpected test. Look at this guy. He starts smiling radiantly, very confident. He gets ready to reveal the second reason, showing the ranking scoreboard. Some spectators doubted, but the noise ensures that he wouldn't have accepted if he wasn't confident. In front of him, the robots prepare to attack, which could be the greatest brutality. Their eyes shine red, indicating indicating that the fight won't be easy. The scoreboard then highlights a maximum score of 43, and the chat divides, with some believing he can achieve this feat. In the end, our hero, Subaru, positions himself in the center of the arena for the final move. Suddenly, a spectator throws down a mission, offering 10,000 credits for our guy. Seeing that cash, other fans also send credits, and he accepts the challenge. The chat comments that he's just a newbie and that he's going to have problems. Hank agrees. He then announces that he will give all the mission's money to Subaru. Shortly after, the streamer grabs a timer and prepares to kick off the event. Then, with an excited shout, he goes over and hits the button, yelling that the show has begun. And so the 3-minute countdown begins to mark the time of the challenge, surrounded by a lineup of robots ready for action. The challenge is real, and without wasting any time, Subaru activates his electric ability and prepares for that insane fight. Then, with impressive skill and agility, he dodges an attack from one of the robots, grabs a robot's head with his electric hand, and hurls it away, destroying it and scoring his first point. Rankai vibrates at witnessing the emergence of thunder as Subaru summons his fierce sword for the duel and charges at several robots. With 2 minutes and 39 seconds on the timer, the robots advance with red eyes of fury. Fully surrounded, our protagonist, Subaru, stands in the midst of that arena. Then, with 2 minutes and 3 seconds on the clock, Narukami Subaru dodges a blow with his electric power, demonstrating absurd agility. My dude, the chat goes wild the moment aerial combat becomes our hero's true specialty. He then takes off flying towards one of the robots, preparing for a killer attack. Then, with that sword firmly in hand, he concentrates all his energy into what seems to be the decisive blow. The blade shines brightly, almost as if it emanates a golden and dark energy, and soon he unleashes an area attack that devastates all the enemies around him. The score rises to 26, but you know what else is rising? The likes on this video. With 1 minute and 22 seconds left on the clock, a robot, completely destroyed by the force of this grand power, makes the chat start shouting that he will easily surpass the score of the second place holder. And look, Rankai observes in amazement the extent of our boy's supernatural ability. Then, a tear rolls down his cheek, but that tear, my friend, is pure shock at what he is witnessing. Then, with only 13 seconds left, the score reaches 40, and the defeated monster prepares to deliver the fatal blow. Then, with 9 seconds remaining, the scoreboard shows 42. He destroys another robot. The prey is real. Only 5 seconds left and he's still attacking non-stop. Time is running out and, with a focused gaze, he faces the last enemy in front of him. A final robot positions itself, ready for anything. Then, with only 2 seconds on the timer, Narukami Subaru delivers a powerful kick, and at the last second, he shatters the final enemy with his sword. The scoreboard still shows a score of 42 as time runs out as well. However, as the countdown hits 0, the score updates to 43. Wow! Finally, the test is over, and he ties for first place with that magical mark. The chat explodes with excitement, and the scoreboard confirms, wow, that was epic! A tie with Subaru Narukami. He can't believe it. He starts shouting that he managed to equal the original. Oh my goodness. Then, with a big smile on his face, he informs almost 40,000 people that it was a tie. Well now, with several fans starting to send donations, Narukami thanks everyone for their support. The chat asks if this is his live stream, but Rankai quickly denies it. Out of nowhere, a 10,000 credit donation from someone named Reinhardt appears on the screen. Rankai is taken aback by that name, and the chat goes wild, trying to figure out if it's the real one. A streamer confirms his identity and is stunned to find out that the top player is watching. And then a commanding man appears on a throne of swords, the famous Reinhardt. Or, let's face it, this guy is also known as the one-hit swordsman. He sends another 1,000 credits and says he always watches the streamer's live broadcasts and was impressed. Narukami Subaru, all intrigued, wonders why he showed up right now. Then, Reinhardt extends an invitation for collaboration, leaving our hero speechless. The two, waiting, have that atmosphere of indecision in the air. You know how it is, right? Behind the scenes, Jotaro and Radasuka give him a thumbs up to accept, but Narukami just surprises everyone and declines the invitation. Leaving the streamer astonished, the director and the manager start to freak out upon seeing the refusal, live on air. Narukami apologizes and asks Rankin to wrap things up, as he feels tired. Wow, the guy is now extremely confused, while our young lad starts to leave without offering any more explanations. Now, director Rizuka rushes to him, questioning why he refused, and he asks if this whole mess is just because of that. Wow. Ultimately, he lets it slip that if the hacker is important for collaboration, then he'll become one too, right? So, with a firm expression, Narukami faces the two without saying a word. The guy approaches, praising that it was the best live stream and promises to pay as soon as he can. He takes advantage of the fact that the broadcast has ended and asks our hero if he's hurt. Narukami reflects that, as expected, the sharp eyes of the Falcon notice the difference. He thinks that it doesn't matter if he won or lost. it would be a disadvantage either way. Then the guy asks why that would be a disadvantage. Narukami explains that if he won, the attention would be temporary and would soon fade. But if he lost, the fame would suggest that he couldn't compete with the original. Then, with a measured gaze, he realizes that the tie was the best outcome. The director now is left unsure. Does this mean he could have done even better than the original? Look, this guy is pretty arrogant, isn't he? But our hero bids farewell in a, shall we say, peculiarly mysterious way. Who knows, right? Or John, in front of everyone, already made it clear that the result is exactly this. And then, Narukami turns around and descends the stairs, leaving everyone behind. That's right. If you liked this video, like it, share it. And don't forget to leave a thumbs up, because that way there will be a continuation. I worked really hard to make this video in record time, my dear, so it's only fair to count on your support down below. That way, I can keep narrating in my own voice. Thank you and stay tuned for the next video. Bye. Then, with a devastating punch, the guy breaks that table in half while shouting that this guy is really insolent. This guy is the 21st gold rank Leon, a guild master. Rehard, look, the ranking X, ended the live stream, and suddenly one of the guys approaches and opens the door while shouting for Mr. Henry. He gives a nervous smile as he says there's a problem. The master starts grinding his teeth as he says that if you're talking about a problem, it means you're talking about Narukami Subaru. The guy apologizes and enters the room while asking if he is the streamer. The master still can't believe that little brat refused his offer. What insolence and audacity to reject his proposal among all people. He turned this guy down. The master said he would smash him in front of everyone and put an end to those irritating rumors, but now everything is ruined. The master, still filled with rage on his face, says he doesn't care about the credits he wasted. What annoys this guy more is that no idiot dared to scratch his pride. He picks up the device again while offering the kit to the gentleman. The guy abruptly grabs the screen and asks what's new about the matter he asked him about, and seems to want to know about Mr. Isaac. They are still looking as much as they can. This guy disappeared for a few days, but everyone knows that at his age it's quite common, right? Look, the master did not like this information at all, grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up, squeezing very tightly. The guy feels completely terrified by that pressure, but I thought he grabbed him with his hand. But no, he only grabbed him with mental strength. As the master lifts the guy, he asks if he is also good at mocking him. The guy can't speak properly, and when he tries, he says, I apologize. The apologize came out incomplete. So quickly, the master crushes him, and he is thrown against the wall at the back. This guy nearly went to the ground with his feet together. He almost became the late one. He, fallen, watches the master while holding his neck, still in much pain. The master gets very close while saying that since then, has he really been fulfilling his obligations? All her requests, the boy now prostrates himself on the ground as he apologizes to the Lord, saying he will return to the search immediately. But a little far from there, things are still somewhat peaceful. The girl even saved the boss's number, labeled annoying boss. Ha ha ha! She has a distant look. She also answers her phone, forcing herself to be very friendly. Good evening, boss. Hello? But the boss, brazen as always, is unbearable. The guy starts complaining that she answered him, with a lifeless, energy-less voice. At least talk to me the same way she talks to Narukami, right? There's no way this girl is going to talk to him the same way she talks to Narukami. I'm sure of that. Here we go again. Then he hangs up and calls back. It seems he didn't care about Reinhardt's collaboration proposal. The boss is saying they shouldn't miss this proposal. In the end, this proposal amounts to a golden chance, a luxurious one, not given to many people. But, unfortunately, maybe, she can't do anything. The guy doesn't want to go through with the collaboration, my boss knows, but this guy is still a streamer and he thinks it's a great opportunity, so he pushes the girl to try to convince Narukami a bit. Oh boy, she's gonna have to talk to that guy, right? The boss is pressuring her. It seems that this guy is more concerned about climbing the ranking than about doing a collaboration. But honestly, everyone knows that this is the right mindset for a player, but not for a streamer. The girl said she's going to hang up, but the boss said she gets irritated when talking to him. Obviously, he's sending way too much, right? And he told her to wait, but she hangs up. Even though she said a lot earlier, it would really be a great opportunity for him, and maybe she should try one more time. So she goes there, knocks on the door while calling for Narukami, and then he answers the door. Now, once again, she keeps asking why he always walks around with that mask, but it seems like he feels more comfortable when he's with her. He gets a little closer to her while asking if she's curious to see his true face. She said yes, or wait a minute. She starts to stutter and says she doesn't. I think so, right? Well, the mask makes viewers associate him with Narukami Subaru, so that means he is Narukami Subaru, of course, right? But someday maybe he can show his face to everyone, including to her, right? No, Narukami just sighs while saying that everyone is so obsessed with Narukami Subaru. But it seems like they are, and there are some peculiar reasons for that. This guy, he was an extremely low-level earthling with pretty terrible attributes. So, it means that an overpower guy with low attributes and poor skills managed to stand out among most people. That makes it really cool. But the most important thing was that Narukami Subaru was the hope of everyone. What do you mean by that? What does this girl want to say? But she said that everyone knows this, and he probably does too. Then we see a flashback when she arrived at the tower for the first time. There was literally nothing. Monsters everywhere, nothing to eat, no way to earn money. Stability, my friend, was just pure fantasy, indeed. Unfortunately, there was only one way to survive, and that was to keep climbing. If a person climbed higher, they would earn more credits and could rise up and re-establish themselves. And little by little, people began to believe that this world could really become theirs. And back then, the greatest players left them with a lot of hope. Everyone truly believed that that tower could be conquered, and that in that world, they could actually win. And the one who was above all of them was Narukami Subaru. The guy had so many achievements that they couldn't just be summed up to clearing floors and climbing towers. This guy was the first to prove that anything was possible. Our boy asks her if she thinks so too, but she leaves a question hanging and says it's a secret, just like the secret he keeps behind that mask. Maybe she will tell someday. Oh, and what was the reason she knocked on his door just to ask questions? He invites her to come inside and talk privately, but the girl blushes again and says it's not necessary. And now she's leaving. As she walks out, sweating and blushing, she thinks that after saying all that, she doesn't even want to convince that boy anymore. And she keeps wondering why that guy keeps inviting her into his house. Wow, every time this happens, her heart races. But our boy thinks it's very strange. Well, once again, our boy Subaru begins his live stream, and look at that. He started the live with his #1 fan donating 1,000 credits. He thanks for the credits, and this fan called him Love. Ah, he hopes they can win today. Look, the system has gifted him again with the notification of the Golden Lion that offered 500 credits now, and asked if he really won't participate in the collaboration with his Henry Hard. Iggy Drazil also gifted him 5,000 credits, saying he is the master of the IG Brazil Guild, and he also has something important to tell him. Does he have a moment? He continues to watch all those notifications as he's gaining a lot of subscribers. He starts to notice that the anticipation around the collaboration is huge, and the views and donations are coming in steadily at the same pace. In other words, if he gives people what they want, they pay him with credits. So, it's decided, he will now start the 3rd floor of the test, but before that, he needs to choose his faction. He can be from the Ottoman Kingdom or from the Calm Red Kingdom. Some people tell him to decide and go with the Ottoman Kingdom, while others say that times have changed. The chat is quite divided. Look, his faction practically changes everything in the judgment of this floor. They hate each other, so the missions change depending on which faction he chooses. So, based on that, he decided to choose the Calm Red Kingdom. But this kingdom is not chosen by the majority of players. It is only chosen by 3% of the players, but there might be a reason for that. In the 3rd floor, people are eating and drinking. Apparently, it is some sort of mercenary resting area of the Calm Red Kingdom. Our boy walks in through the front door, and people start to notice his presence, especially the bully. He smiles, saying he's the new kid, and he arrived just in time when everyone was dying of boredom. He looks at our boy, thinking that this guy is his new toy. He walks slowly towards the boy, hands in his pockets, and gives him a sly shoulder bump, grinning wickedly. But instead of the bump being strong enough to knock our boy down, no. The bump was so powerful that he felt the weight and had to steady himself. The boy passed through it as if it were nothing. The guy now trembled with fear, realizing that our boy is way too strong. Our boy told him to watch where he's going. The guy starts to get pumped up as he asks if he has a problem, but he, calmly and nonchalantly, says that it's him who has a problem. After all, he bumped into him on purpose. The guy grabs the collar of his shirt, saying he's going to make him stay quiet, just like all the new kids should. Obviously, he's a rookie mercenary. How dare he disrespect him in front of everyone? But the people in that neighborhood start shouting that a fight is about to go down, while some think and try to figure out who this new kid is. Look, others even say that the vulture is attacking a rookie rank again, but the boy looks at him and says he's a rank B, right? Great. He also wanted to test something new, but the guy doesn't understand what he wants to test, right? Then, lightning starts to shoot out from his feet, and he activates the thunder crackling around Subaru's leg. He lunges forward and delivers a kick right to the bully's chin. Well, that kick was so strong that it already broke a few teeth, and the guy is sent flying with disproportionate force. So, with just one blow, the guy fell to the ground unconscious. It seems that this fight wasn't as interesting as everyone expected. While people are commenting that the fight ended too quickly, an old man is watching everything with great interest. Some people say he actually kicked the vulture. Looks like this X-level guy is showing off, huh? Some of the vulture's friends are getting angry, and they say they're going to rip that mask off his face and everything. The guy is happy, saying this will be his great rookie, but our boy calmly looks on while counting how many there are. In the moments that follow, everyone is wrecked. Well, the boy finished so quickly that we didn't even see it, as one of them screams that this guy cannot be just a rookie. An old man who was watching everything before now approaches the young one and asks if he has any skills. His name is Raymond. He is the patent examiner. He greets the boy while saying he's never seen him before, and also asks how many jobs he has completed. But how does he know? He's a tiered mercenary, and they can only take versatile and limited jobs. The system then notifies that raw air is a waste of time, and he calls for different jobs. The people in the live stream comment that that vulture is too arrogant. Another also remarks that the Tier B vulture was used as a springboard. The third floor test consists of performing various mercenary jobs to gain experience, and also 10,000 points as a reward for completing the tiered mercenary missions. At best, it can give him about 50 points, so players usually get stuck there for over a year on average. Unfortunately, or fortunately, he had to take a shortcut and use everyone as a springboard. In the end, he can't waste any time, not a second with IO. Now is not the time to level up peacefully. The old man thinks of a shortcut, huh? Come to think of it, you're from another world, right? He notices that he doesn't see many people like this guy lately, but the phrase other worlds means that those people call him other players. After all, this is the tower's folk. So when a player goes there to level up in the tower, he refers to that player as from another world. Even so, he can't give special treatment to this guy. After all, everything has its order. But our boy still wants to cut the path short. But why would this old man offer special benefits to an outsider who's just there to complete his task and leave? There's no benefit for him, but he knows there's only one way to complete the third floor challenge. At once, all he can do is fulfill his own dreams. This guy must be joking. What does he mean by that? Well, here we go. In the Thunder Cave, he can do all of this for the Conrads. The old man is shocked. This guy means he's going to conquer that cave of the Conrads? Can he really? That place only belongs to A-rank mercenaries. No E-rank can take an A-level job. And more importantly, the real problem is that he's going to die. But our boy, with a serene look, says he knows that this is a battle of pride. After all, Osman and Conrad are fighting a pride battle in an impenetrable dungeon. That Thunder Cave, especially on the third floor of that tower, has never been completed by any player, mercenary, or knight on the face of the earth, or in the recorded history between the kingdoms of Conrad and Osman. There lies the enormous, impassable mountain range, over which the two nations have fought for decades. So what that means is, by conquering the Thunder Cave, he can easily pass on the right through the mountains. After all, it has been a shared ambition to block invasions and also gain military superiority. So, if he provides proof of being among the ranked, he will unlock that cave. He also swears he won't abuse it. Well, the old man is thinking and reflecting a lot about this. Can he really do it? The boy is firm and believes he can get through this, but the people in the chat are doubting it a lot. It seems like he's going to end up on the ground like that vulture. After thinking a bit, the old man said he would write a recommendation letter so he could participate in the raid inclusion mission. Those attack groups always need manpower, and the chat said he escaped with little life. The old man leaves while saying that the attack group will depart in 5 days and he will also take that recommendation letter. So, all he has to do is wait there. Perfect. The system announces that the villain mission has been started, so all he has to do is complete that thunder dungeon alone for 20,000 credits. How about that? Safi Pocket gave him a mission. And that's easy money, right? 10,000 for the same mission, clearing 10 layers. He gave him a mission and will also give 5,000, same thing. He can't back down, or he'll be considered a coward. 5 days later is exactly when the third floor tournament ends. The Blue Zone planned the tournament schedule. Taking that into account, will it really happen? So, does that mean that by clearing that Thunder Cave, he will be able to do it? Well, honestly, he's kind of having a hard time believing it, right? But still, he'll do his best to help the kid. After all, he himself challenged that cave when he was young, and lost half of his group that day. The guy takes that recommendation letter while saying that maybe it won't happen this time, so why ask for a recommendation letter? He holds the letter in his hand while saying that he's planning to go in alone. Oh my gosh, now the chat is going wild. Is he really going to do that? So does that mean he will complete the third floor alone too? Obviously, at some point everyone will complete that territory, but everyone knows it's an unknown territory, and there's not much information about it. The kid keeps the recommendation letter while the old man says he's crazy. That's the Thunder Cave. It was made for 20 men to invade. Does he think he can defeat everyone inside there alone? It seems that he heard that the count is short-staffed compared to Osman. Could they gather 20 people to start? Well, honestly, it's going to be tough, right? But he presumed he already had companions, right? But our kid never said that. He doesn't have any companions now. No, well, that phrase, not now, refers to the lost companions. For sure, this is really quite impressive. The guy really plans to clear it alone. One guy keeps walking through a canyon while saying that this guy is really just like Subaru. If only this wasn't a live broadcast, right? No one would find out. The guy keeps saying that he's doing other tests. is he asking? But unfortunately, our kid Subaru isn't interested in any of them. Our kid's live stream is already at about 4,000 viewers live. That said, he's going to take a break from streaming while thanking everyone who's watching. The girl is shocked that he's already going to end the live stream. Naruto Subaru ended the broadcast just when she thought it would help pass the time until she reached the 3rd floor. But really, this guy looks a lot like him, even if everyone says otherwise. This guy manages to follow his own path without caring about others' opinions. This guy is like the real streamer of Subaru. He's definitely going to participate in the tournament, no doubt about it. She keeps running, now more and more excited to finish her mission quickly and chat with him. She also hopes he doesn't win. Then, a little farther away, everyone has high expectations for the final. That's exactly how Naruto and Subaru would have acted. Did he really capture the vibe of the original? Everyone is booing. The girl thinks that if he hadn't gone there to take on normal jobs, his live stream wouldn't have been so special, right? Is this something she thinks was thanks to her advice? And she, still blushing, looks at him and asks what he's going to do next. But he says he's going to hunt until the tournament because he doesn't know what kind of rivals might show up, so he wants to level up a little more. But deep down, he thinks that all he wants, besides leveling up, is to know what the limits of his current thunder attributes are. He also wants to test the performance of his thunder heart, while thinking that he'll never give Tokia's remembrance to anyone. A bit farther away, a blue zone player, Genzaki Naoto, is very angry as he tells no one to mess with him. He's going there, but he doesn't want to, right? Normally, when someone from the blue zone calls you, you whip your tail and run. How dare he go over there just to see him? This guy is an idiot. He then approaches the door while saying he doesn't care if he's the thunder or not. He doesn't like dancing anyone's dance, especially the dance of a newbie from the 3rd floor. Well, he opens the door on his phone and says he's already arrived. The guy welcomes him and says it's right over there. And he turns off his cell phone, puts it in his pocket, and walks to the table. On the table, there are already 2 glasses and a bottle. So he is Mr. Gazarke from Zona Azul, right? He heard there's something to discuss about one of his streamers. Look at that. This guy wasn't even wanting to go there. Now he discovers that his streamer isn't there. Damn, where is this guy? The guy just said that, unfortunately, he can't make it to the meeting. He has more important things to do. The guy starts scratching his ears and says, how come a rookie has more important things than talking to a member of Zona Azul? Yeah, that's a private matter and he is not authorized to answer that. But the most important thing is that they have already conveyed his wishes, right? Anyway, that's why he isn't there. They plan to discuss this matter directly with him, so he doesn't want to talk to third parties, right? But, unfortunately, it's going to be hard for this guy to find him. Damn. The long-haired guy starts getting even more irritated. Does this guy not want them to actually find him? Look at that. All he starts to think is that someone is making his visit to Narukami Subaru harder, and if he doesn't meet this guy, he's going to get in trouble for it. He starts shouting while saying he already knows the game. They are trying to defend their golden player, right? He bangs on the table as the mug jumps and spills some liquid on the table. The guy begins to tell the other two, think carefully about the words he is about to say. After all, wouldn't it be much better for Narukami Subaru to join an important guild instead of just doing little live streams? Does he think so or not? Well, famous players earn as much as top-ranked players these days, so it's the same. The guy starts to relax while saying that, instead, if you come across players who are prejudiced against streamers or any kind of online profession, that's pretty annoying. After all, he himself has witnessed this kind of player before. Well, that sentence threw the guy off because he was being quite prejudiced too. It seems like the way this guy talks, he's trying to make Zona Azul his enemy, but the guy just tells him to pay attention and listen. Until the end, his priority is the same priority as the streamers. In other words, everything depends on Narukami's decision. Whatever decision he makes, the company will fully support it. Look at that. The guy starts to smile while saying that for an adult man, he seems completely disconnected and oblivious to the outside world. Does he really think that the Blue Zone will remain silent about this? Wow, he is completely shocked to hear everything the guy is saying. The guy starts to say that the one who doesn't understand is him, because there are people who cannot be defeated by force or fear. And he begins to emanate a terrifying aura as he says that if he has finished speaking, it would be better for him to disappear from there. That intimidating aura starts to penetrate the long-haired guy's body, and he begins to sweat with fear, but trembling with fear, he tries not to show it. Meanwhile, he thinks, what the hell? What an overwhelming mana was that? Well, he only said that in thought, because from his mouth, all that came out was, hey, 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 hey! Stammering all over the place, he says, get out of here! Who does he think he is to talk to me like that? The guy just raises his hand and tells him to get lost, but without any words, just with his hand. Could that have just been his imagination? The guy stands up and starts to leave while saying that he too will regret what happened there today. And he, still with his arms crossed, smiles and says that it was scary. That's it. We have reached the last chapter of the work. I hope you enjoyed it. And if this video is good, you already know, right? There will be a sequel. Don't forget to check if you are still subscribed to the channel. Thank you for watching, like, share, and most importantly, rip the video. I hope you enjoyed it and stay tuned for the next video.